Chapter 1503. When Long Yu used the world-cleansing soul mirror to kill the weakest 5th phase divine water race creature, everyone noticed that there wasn't any teleportation array appearing. It was clear that this trial wasn't something that could be passed with just one death. If he wanted a teleportation array to appear, he would have to kill even more divine water race creatures. When Long Yu saw that his points had increased from 80 to 90, he was quite happy. It would be great if he could kill more divine water race creatures. In any case, he didn't suffer any losses. Moreover, with one dead, the remaining 3 would be much easier to kill. Among Yu Fei, Moon Song, and Red Oriole used her demon shadow binding to restrain one of the divine water race clansmen. As for the remaining divine water race clansmen, he fought Yu Fei one-on-one. There was another 7th phase sovereign divine water race creature that charged in Long Yu's direction. Since Long Yu had already taken a pill to recover his strength, he had already cancelled the illusory field. Otherwise, it was very likely that his strength would be exhausted. If he took the same pill again, the effect would be halved, and it would be a waste. Even if he didn't use the illusion field, Long Yu wouldn't be killed by his opponent. However, the divine water race wasn't so easy to deal with. Moon Song and Red Oriole rushed in Long Yu's direction to support him. However, the 7th phase sovereign divine water race creature used a powerful technique on the 2 women. A puddle of gray liquid appeared out of nowhere and formed 2 gray bubbles, trapping the 2 women inside. This was the divine water race's control technique. It seemed to be an innate divine ability that had been infused with some kind of power essence. Not only were the 2 women trapped inside, but they also seemed to suffer from mental interference. They seemed to be in a daze. Even if they were rescued, it would be very difficult for them to continue fighting. If the 2 women had also cultivated the pure world body to the peak of the 9th layer, then this technique would be useless against them. Unfortunately, the 2 women didn't cultivate the pure world body. They only cultivated the devil dust heart. Long Yu let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the opponent only used a control technique and mental interference technique. For the 2 women, it was still a bit of protection. Limitless grasp. Long Yu raised his hand. Dark demon divine text condensed in his hand, forming an invisible hand that grabbed at the 7th phase sovereign divine water race creature. Then, the 2nd and 3rd grips followed. After sealing the opponent's power, the dark demon divine text exploded inside the opponent's body. Of course, the opponent was a 7th phase sovereign expert. Long Yu didn't have any chance of completely eliminating him. However, the limitless dark demon divine text still dealt quite a bit of damage to the 7th phase dark demon god. Most importantly, when the limitless grasp was activated with the dark demon divine text, the 3rd part of the grasp would cause a certain amount of damage to the opponent's spirit and soul. If the opponent's martial arts realm was not high enough, they would probably be killed by the explosion. After harassing the opponent for a bit, water-type primordial power condensed around the opponent. Void Burial was immediately activated. The Void Nether Dragon Blade and Long Yu had already reached an unparalleled level. There was no need for any communication. The 2 of them knew each other's thoughts. Long Yu only needed a thought for the Void Nether Dragon Blade to attack. Unfortunately, Void Burial was an attack formed from water-type primordial power. Even though it was extremely destructive, it didn't have much of an effect against the divine water race creature. As the Void Burial was activated, a gray water-type primordial power barrier appeared around the divine water race creature. It actually absorbed most of the Void Burial's destructive power. Right, the divine water race is a life form made of liquid. They are also very familiar with water-type primordial power. Using water-type primordial power against the divine water race creature really won't have much of an effect. Long Yu couldn't help but shake his head when he thought of this. Fortunately, the opponent had spent some effort to deal with Void Burial. As a result, he didn't pay too much attention to Moon Song and Red Oriole. Ancient Dragon Bone Pagoda, Dragon Bone Breaker. Long Yu took advantage of this opportunity to activate the ancient Dragon Bone Pagoda and smash it towards the gray bubbles around Moon Song and Red Oriole. After all, it was a top-tier unbounded weapon. Furthermore, the opponent was busy dealing with Long Yu's Void Burial, so they couldn't maintain the effects of the two gray bubbles. The ancient Dragon Bone Pagoda's Dragon Bone Breaker directly smashed the two bubbles. Moon Song and Red Oriole fell out of them. The two women's mental states were a little dazed after being disrupted, but they immediately reacted after the bubbles were smashed. They didn't need Long Yu to say anything. They already knew what had happened to them, and they couldn't help but feel a little scared. If the divine water race creature hadn't used a control technique, but an offensive technique, wouldn't they have been finished? After all, the opponent was a peak 7th stage sovereign realm expert of the divine water race. How could their techniques be so simple? Just this innate control and mental disruption ability had almost caused them to fall for it. The gray bubbles just now should be a control technique. As for the mental disruption effect, it's very likely that it's a mutation of some kind of energy essence. Moreover, it's very likely that as time passes, the disruption effect will become stronger. If you stay inside for half a day, your mind and soul will most likely be completely destroyed. Long Yu guessed. The consort Yu was dealing with a 7th stage sovereign realm expert of the divine water race and a 6th stage sovereign realm expert of the divine water race that had escaped from the demon shadow's binding. She wasn't at a disadvantage at all. The 7th stage sovereign realm expert of the divine water race was left to Long Yu and the others to deal with. Thousand Gates Soul Lock. As the destructive whirlpool of void burial gradually dissipated, Red Oriole didn't stop. She immediately used the Thousand Gates Soul Lock on the 7th stage sovereign realm expert of the divine water race. The divine water race creature reacted. A gray liquid barrier appeared around its body in an attempt to block the Thousand Gates Soul Lock. However, the wandering soul gates that appeared around it were completely illusory and didn't have any physical form. When the 1,000 wandering soul gates instantly gathered around the divine water race creature, the soul of the divine water race creature was completely trapped. It couldn't use any techniques for a while. 4 Symbols Death Prison. Blood-colored whip. Long Yu and Red Oriole continued to use their powerful mental attack. If they wanted to deal with an opponent that was far stronger than them, they had no other choice but to use mental attacks. Long Yu could still use the martial skill Berserk Heavenly Body, but there was no need for it now. This was because it would take too much time to stack up the Berserk Heavenly Body, so it would be better to directly use a mental attack. In any case, they had a lot of mental attack methods. Apart from Long Yu and Red Oriole, Moon Song also used other technique. Star Soul Lock. This was a Grade 2 God formation. It was one of the Grade 2 God formations that she had comprehended before. It could condense the power of the Star Divine characters and completely surround the opponent. Then, it would use the power of the Star Divine characters to trap the opponent's soul. Under the effects of the Star Soul Lock, the opponent's soul couldn't move at all. It could only be trapped by the countless lines of death from the 4 Symbols Death Prison. Originally, just by relying on the Thousand Gates Soul Lock, he would be able to break free very quickly. However, with the stacking effect of the Astral Soul Lock, he would not be able to break free for a while. The 4 Symbols Death Prison and Red Oriole's Blood-Red Whip constantly bombarded his mind and soul, causing great damage to his mind and soul. If it was an ordinary 6th or 7th stage sovereign from a foreign race, they wouldn't be able to withstand such a mental attack. Their soul would have already collapsed. However, this peak 7th stage sovereign realm expert from the divine water race was extremely tough. Even after suffering such a barrage of attacks, his mind and soul were still brimming with energy. The continuous barrage of attacks only destroyed less than 30% of his mind and soul power. Although the damage was basically permanent, it was clear that it wasn't easy to kill this peak 7th stage sovereign from the divine water race. It wouldn't be easy for this peak 7th stage Sovereign Realm Divine Water Race expert to recover to a state where he could fight. His fleshly body was definitely stronger than his soul. It was basically impossible for Long Yu to destroy his fleshly body. Therefore, they couldn't be bothered with him. The three of them turned their attention to Consort Yu. At this time, Consort Yu was fighting 1 against 2, but she wasn't at a disadvantage. However, it wasn't easy to kill either one of the two. The two Divine Water Race experts were attacking and defending. Their coordination was perfect. Even Consort Yu couldn't break through their alliance. However, at this time, Long Yu and the others arrived at the battlefield. Limitless Grasp. Dark Devil Divine Text condensed. Without any hesitation, Long Yu grabbed the opponent's 6th stage sovereign with one hand and pulled it in front of him. At this moment, the strength of this Divine Water Race expert was completely sealed. It couldn't do any damage to Long Yu. Third Grasp. Break. Dark Demon Divine Text exploded from within the opponent's body, destroying his spirit and soul. At the same time, countless blood-colored whips descended from the sky. In an instant, the 6th-phase Sovereign Realm Divine Water Race was stunned. Consort Yu took advantage of this opportunity. Immortal Qi and Devil Qi revolved around her body. Countless black and white sword Qi rained down on the other 7th stage Sovereign, forcing it to continuously retreat. It was separated from the Divine Water Race expert controlled by Long Yu's limitless grasp. It was basically impossible for them to carry out that kind of offensive and defensive cooperation again. I might not be able to kill a peak 7th stage Dominator, but how could we not be able to kill a 6th stage Dominator? The corner of Long Yu's mouth curled up. He worked together with Red Oriole and Moon Song, preparing to completely kill this 6th stage Sovereign. 4 symbols Death Prison, Soul-Locking Star, and blood-colored whips surged forward. They didn't give the Divine Water Race expert any chance to resist. Chapter 1504. With the death of the 6th stage Sovereign Realm Divine Water Race expert, only 2 7th stage Sovereign Realm Divine Water Race experts were left on the battlefield. If they were to fight normally, they definitely wouldn't be a match for Long Yu's group of 4. However, if they were forced into a corner and forced to self-destruct, the situation wouldn't be good. There's still no teleportation array. Long Yu observed the battlefield and said in a low voice. This checkpoint was a little strange. Did they really have to kill all the foreign races here before they could proceed to the next checkpoint? Also, when they first entered this space, there were 12 white dots of light moving around. What were those white dots of light? Now that the entire space was illuminated by Consort Yu's immortal aura, the white dots of light couldn't be seen. Since there was no teleportation array, they could only continue killing the 2 Divine Water Race creatures for the time being. At this stage, peak 7th stage Sovereigns wouldn't choose to self-destruct unless they had no other choice. However, within the eroding Moon Ancient region, it was said that even if one were to self-destruct, it wouldn't cause too much damage to the surroundings. This was something Long Yu had heard before. It seemed that the eroding Moon Ancient region would restrict the power of these experts' self-destruction. It wouldn't be like in the outside world, where a violent space-time vortex would erupt. Therefore, Long Yu's group of 4 only needed to pay attention to self-preservation. There was no need for them to attack. The closer the other side was to death, the more likely it was that they would use tyrannical methods that would cause both sides to suffer. You guys just pay attention to protecting yourselves. Senior Consort Yu and I will deal with the remaining 2 Divine Water Race creatures. Long Yu could use the Book of Shadows' divine ability to turn into nothingness. Since he had already fused with the Shadow Essence, the consumption of turning into nothingness was basically negligible. He could casually use it for a couple of hours. During battle, he wouldn't run out of energy because of turning into nothingness. With the ability to turn into nothingness, it was basically impossible for Long Yu to be killed by the other side. Next, Red Oriole and Moon Song followed behind Long Yu and Consort Yu, constantly using harassing, controlling, and defensive method. Meanwhile, Long Yu and Consort Yu worked together to deal with one of the divine water race creatures whose soul had been heavily injured. It didn't take long. With Long Yu controlling and Consort Yu attacking, the divine water race creature was quickly killed by Consort Yu. There was only one divine water race left. Even if it was a peak 7th stage sovereign realm existence, there was no need to explain what happened next. With the four of them working together, they quickly killed it. In the end, it was Yu Fei who killed it. After all, these peak 7th stage sovereigns were extremely powerful existences to Long Yu, Moon Song, and Red Oriole. It would be very difficult to kill them. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, it was best to let Consort Yu kill them directly. After all, the four divine water race creatures were killed. Consort Yu withdrew the snow-white immortal aura that had spread throughout the entire space. Then, the 12 small white orbs of light appeared once more. Still no teleportation array. It looks like passing this trial doesn't have much to do with killing the divine water race creatures. Instead, the key lies in these 12 orbs of light. Long Yu frowned as he thought to himself, "If I'm not wrong, this should be a treasure trial." Consort Yu said doubtfully, "But I've never heard of a treasure trial like this. How about this? I'll touch one of the white orbs of light first and see what happens. You guys keep an eye out for any accident." If she touched the orbs of light first, she might encounter some danger. However, since they had guessed that this was a treasure trial, it was time to reap the rewards. After all, they had just killed 4 divine water race creatures. It wouldn't make sense if there was still danger in this space. In short, it was quite possible that the white orbs of light were treasures, but there was still the possibility of danger. Under the nervous gazes of Long Yu and the others, Consort Yu flew towards one of the small white orbs of light. Then, she extended her hand from afar, wanting to grab it. Immediately after, the white orb of light instantly grew bigger, and a mysterious jade box that radiated white light appeared in front of everyone. This situation made everyone heave a sigh of relief. It really was a treasure trial. Moreover, this wasn't an ordinary treasure trial, but a selective treasure trial. In other words, each of the 4 of them could choose a white orb of light, and a treasure would appear in it. It seems that the condition to open this treasure trial is to kill all the other divine water race creatures in this space. If we were evenly matched, it's very likely that only 2 or even 1 of us would be left alive in the end. Then, we would only be able to obtain 1 or 2 rewards. Fortunately, all 4 of us survived. A smile appeared on Consort Yu's face. She didn't open the white mysterious jade box. Instead, she carried it and threw it towards Long Yu. Obviously, she wanted Long Yu to keep it for now. "Let's just open it. We might be able to obtain something that we can use in the eroding moon ancient region. It might be helpful in the battle later." Long Yu shook his head. He didn't keep the mysterious jade box properly. Instead, he threw it back to Consort Yu. Upon hearing this, Consort Yu didn't feel too conflicted. She nodded and opened the mysterious jade box. A beam of white light suddenly shone out from the jade box. Following that, a longsword combat weapon floated out from the box and appeared in front of everyone's eyes. This longsword is a divine-grade absolute beginning artifact, and it comes with some sort of revelation-grade divine rune. Yu Fei wasn't the only one who sensed it. Long Yu and the other 2, who were further away, also sensed it. The revealed-grade divine runes on the longsword were light-type revealed-grade divine runes. They were divine runes derived from fire elemental primordial power. Among the 4 of them, Moon Song was undoubtedly the one who was most compatible with the divine rune. However, it wasn't the time to divide the spoils. "Let's go. We'll each pick a white light spot. Logically speaking, everyone who survives should be able to get a treasure." Of course, when there was a chance to obtain a treasure, he would naturally want to obtain it. Even if it would cost him 10 points, as long as he thought about it, he would be able to obtain such a supreme treasure by killing a single outsider. Why wouldn't he be happy to do so? It was an absolute beginning divine-grade longsword. Not to mention its value, just the revelation-level divine runes on it made it far more valuable than ordinary treasures. It should be noted that Long Yu and the others obtained the stone statue with the Forest Demon Divine rune in the Multi-Winged Clan's ancient ruins. Even in the Multi-Winged Clan's ancient ruins, there was only one such item. Now, just a random longsword with a revelation-grade divine rune on it could be used to comprehend the divine rune. It was clear how precious the treasures in the eroding moon ancient domain were. Long Yu, Moon Song, and Red Oriole spread out and each picked a white light spot. Then, just like Consort Yu, they each received a chest. However, Consort Yu's chest was made of white jade, while the other three's chests were made of different materials. Long Yu's chest was made of amethyst, while Moon Song's and Red Oriole's chests were made of black obsidian. According to the rarity of the materials, the white jade chest is obviously nothing. The amethyst chest is more precious. As for the obsidian chest, it's one level lower than the white jade chest. Consort Yu narrowed her eyes. No need to think too much. Just open it. Long Yu smiled and opened the amethyst chest in his hand. According to Consort Yu, amethyst chests were rarer and more precious than white jade chests, so the items inside should be better. Very quickly, Long Yu opened the amethyst chest, and a burst of purple light emitted from it. What appeared in front of him was a pendant. The pendant was completely made of amethyst, and on top of the pendant hung a cross-shaped star pattern. This is a cross-shaped star pendant. Long Yu's eyes lit up. When he opened the amethyst chest, he heard a mysterious voice say these words in his mind. A cross-shaped star pendant. It was obvious that this was a rather old pendant. The cross-shaped purple crystal in the center of the pendant had a few cracks that weren't too obvious. It was obvious that this item was a little damaged. It's actually a divine source artifact. A look of surprise appeared on Concubine Yu's face upon seeing this. Even though it's a damaged divine essence treasure, it's still quite surprising that the eroding moon ancient realm has something like this. Divine source artifact? What is that? Long Yu was curious. It was the first time he had heard of this term. A divine source artifact is the crystallization of the origin energy of a demigod-level master. Normally, only after a demigod-level master dies will the essence of his power be condensed into a divine source artifact. Generally speaking, a divine source artifact has protective functions. It can be said to be a type of combat weapon. In terms of defense, it's basically better than any other combat weapon, including the absolute beginning divine quality that has been awakened to the peak. Consort Yu explained, last time, you stalled the alien demigods in the Ice God clan's outer galaxy, and the monster demigods killed 3 alien demigods. Those 3 alien demigods didn't condense a divine source artifact. Only when a peak demigod-level master dies, can they condense a divine source artifact. If this divine source artifact is intact, as long as you wear it, no attack below the demigod level will be able to hurt you. Unfortunately, it's damaged. Although its defense is definitely very strong, it still has some limitations. I see. Long Yu was also shocked when he heard Consort Yu's explanation. It was something that could only be condensed after a peak demigod-level master died. This cross-shaped star pendant was clearly much more precious than that long sword. Chapter 1505. It was the first time that Long Yu had heard of and seen something like a divine origin item. It could be said that there were not many such items in the entire human race and the demon race. According to Consort Yu, none of the 3 alien demigods they killed last time had left behind a divine origin item. It could be seen how precious this item was. It was not something that could be obtained by killing demigods. One had to kill many demigods to obtain one. Therefore, although the cross-shaped star pendant that Long Yu had obtained was cracked, it was still very rare. Red Oriole, wear this pendant for now. If its defense is really that strong, you should be safer in the eroding moon ancient region this time. Long Yu threw the cross-shaped star pendant to Red Oriole. After all, he was still worried about Red Oriole's safety. Unfortunately, there was only one of this item. Otherwise, he would have given Red Oriole and Moon Song one each. Moon Song watched Red Oriole catch the cross-shaped star pendant. Although she was a little envious, she was not jealous. After all, she knew very well that the cross-shaped star pendant was a treasure that Long Yu had obtained. He was free to give it to whoever he wanted. Compared to Red Oriole and Moon Song knew very well that in Long Yu's heart, she was not as important as Red Oriole. After all, they were a couple. However, it was Moon Song and Red Oriole's turn to open the two obsidian boxes. Red Oriole was still studying the cross-shaped star pendant, while Moon Song opened the obsidian box in her hand. Then, a bright light shone out from the box. What appeared in front of her was a first-grade heavenly crystal creation item. This caused her eyes to widen. She simply couldn't believe that she had actually obtained such a treasure. If the longsword that contained the revelation-grade divine text was worth at least hundreds of millions or even billions of army merit points, then this first-grade heaven crystal creation item was also worth a lot. It was worth at least hundreds of millions of army merit points. Of course, the price was not the key. More importantly, those items were things that couldn't even be found in the Demigod's College. They couldn't be bought no matter how much military honor one had. The amount of creation power contained within a Grade 1 Heaven Crystal Grade creation item is at least 5 times that of a Grade 2 Heaven Crystal Grade creation item, and 25 times that of a Grade 3 Heaven Crystal Grade creation item. Based on the price of a Grade 3 Heaven Crystal Grade creation item, the price of a Grade 1 Heaven Crystal Grade creation item is at least 100 million. Moreover, Grade 2 and Grade 1 Heaven Crystal Grade creation items all have special effects. Moon Song thought to herself. Then, she took out the first Grade Heaven Crystal Grade creation item. It was a light blue crystal-like object that contained a dazzling stream of light. It could be sensed that apart from the power of creation, it also contained a special power. As for what the power was used for, no one present knew. Even Consort Yu had never seen such a creation item. After all, every creation item had a different effect. Then, Red Oriole also opened the obsidian box in her hand. Then, she found a simple stone tablet inside. It didn't emit any light at all. There were some strange patterns carved on the stone tablet. It seemed to be some kind of cultivation method. It's a martial arts secret technique. Consort Yu came to a conclusion at a glance. Then, she shook her head. Unfortunately, I don't know what effect this martial arts secret technique has. Everyone looked around and found that in the center of the space, after they opened all 4 treasure chests, a teleportation array had appeared. It emitted a faint blue light. As long as they passed through it, they would be able to reach the next checkpoint. However, they weren't in a hurry. Let's digest what we got from this treasure checkpoint first, Consort Yu said, then gestured to Moon Song and Red Oriole. Moon Song nodded. The items obtained from the eroding moon ancient region were all extraordinary. If they could absorb them on the spot, they would undoubtedly increase their strength by quite a bit. In particular, Moon Song's martial realm was slightly higher than Red Oriole's. Now that she had obtained a first-grade heavenly crystal creation item, if she could absorb all of its power, she would definitely be able to make another breakthrough and step into the realm of a 6th-stage great ruler. Meanwhile, Red Oriole placed the stone tablet in front of everyone so that they could see what was recorded on it. This stone tablet is incomplete. It only has the cultivation method for the first 3 stages of the martial arts secret technique. If we want to know about the last 6 stages, we might have to go inside the eroding moon ancient region to obtain them. It's also possible that the cultivation method for the last 6 stages has already been lost. Long Yu narrowed his eyes. Regardless, this is a martial arts secret technique obtained from the eroding moon ancient region. It's good that we can cultivate it if we can. In any case, there's a lot of heaven and earth spiritual chi in our small world. Cultivating the first 3 stages of the martial arts secret technique won't be too slow. As long as there was enough heaven and earth spiritual chi, one could quickly push the martial arts secret technique to the 6th stage. As long as there was enough power of creation, one could cultivate the martial arts secret technique to the peak of the 9th stage and derive secret techniques like the light of equilibrium and the world-cleansing soul mirror. Up until now, Long Yu still hadn't cultivated the devil dust heart to the 7th stage. It was still stuck at the 6th stage. As for the mysterious patterns, he had also taken the time to imprint 132 mysterious patterns, which happened to imprint all 22 mysterious patterns of the 6th stage in his mind. For Long Yu, if he wanted to continue to improve the devil dust heart, he would have to consume a huge amount of power of creation. Now that he had obtained the item of creation, he would definitely use it to improve his martial realm. Therefore, the cultivation of the devil dust heart had to stop for a while. Of course, he didn't have the power of creation, but he had a lot of heaven and earth spiritual chi. Although he had given a lot of heaven and earth spiritual chi to the bone race and the vestigial clan in the pocket dimension, it was nothing to Long Yu's pocket dimension, which had been integrated with the Holy Spirit source. During this period of time, Long Yu had already accumulated enough heaven and earth spiritual chi. Now, he faced the stone tablet and directly cultivated the martial arts secret technique recorded on it. The 2 girls, Consort Yu and Red Oriole, also began to cultivate the martial arts secret technique recorded on the stone tablet with Long Yu. As for Moonsong, she first went to absorb the first-grade heavenly crystal grade creation item. Although everyone had agreed at the beginning that they would distribute the spoils of war after they got out, since they could improve their strength now, there was no need to wait until they got out. They could just give it to whoever wanted it. To be honest, the relationship between the 4 of them had long been very close. There was no need to mention the relationship between Long Yu and Red Oriole, and between Long Yu and Consort Yu, they had also been friends for a long time. Moreover, they were all from the Void Galaxy now. Even if there was something good, there was no need to fight over it. As for Moonsong, she had completed so many academy experiences with Long Yu and Red Oriole in the Demigod Academy, so they were already very familiar with each other. Now that the 4 of them each had a chest, the items that they opened would be distributed to each of them. This was the simplest and most reasonable way to distribute them. The martial arts secret technique stone tablet that Red Oriole opened could be used by all 4 of them. However, she had obtained the cross-shaped star pendant that Long Yu had given her, so it was definitely not a loss. Moonsong had obtained the first-grade heavenly crystal grade creation item and could also cultivate the martial arts secret technique on the stone tablet, so it was also not a loss. Of course, Consort Yu did not lose anything either. Strictly speaking, it was Long Yu who was at a loss, because he had basically only cultivated the martial arts secret technique on the stone tablet this time. But then again, he had voluntarily given the cross-shaped star pendant to Red Oriole, so it could be counted as his own gain. After all, Red Oriole now completely belonged to Long Yu. Did the 2 of them still need to be so clear? The effect of this martial arts secret technique seems to be to build a field around oneself, and then to a certain extent, assimilate the enemy's attacks within the range of this field. Consort Yu cultivated for a while, then frowned slightly. This is the first time I've seen such a martial arts secret technique. All the martial arts secret techniques that I've come into contact with before have been to modify my own body. I didn't expect there to be a martial arts secret technique like this. It's similar to a defensive martial art technique. I wonder what the effects of the assimilation field are like. We can try it out with each other later, and see what kind of effects it has. As Long Yu spoke, he cultivated the martial arts secret technique of assimilation field. The spiritual chi of the world in the miniature world was endlessly channeled into his body, and then he continuously tried to construct the assimilation field according to the method recorded on the stone tablet. This martial arts secret technique was not too difficult to cultivate. The amount of spiritual chi of the world required to cultivate it was about the same as the worldly cleansing body, and it could not compare to the demon dust heart. However, because it was constructed outside the body, this martial arts secret technique was rather unfamiliar to everyone, so they would need to spend a lot of time to get used to it and successfully construct it. As time passed, about 2 hours passed. Long Yu, Red Oriole, and consort you had all successfully cultivated the first martial arts secret technique of assimilation field at about the same time. Then, the three of them looked at each other and prepared to attack each other to see the effects of the assimilation field. "I'll attack you first and see." Red Oriole turned her head and snorted at Long Yu. Then 2 blood-red sword lights swept towards Long Yu. These 2 blood-red sword lights were an ordinary innate ability of Red Oriole, similar to Long Yu's Hand of 9 Nether. Furthermore, these blood-red sword lights only had the effect of attacking and did not have any additional effect. As a result, she would not use it in ordinary battles. Now, it was just right to use it against Long Yu. This was because she was certain that even without the assimilation field, these 2 blood-red sword lights would not be able to harm Long Yu. Now, they could see the effects of Long Yu's assimilation field under the pretext of safety. Long Yu raised his hand, and the assimilation field that he had just successfully cultivated spread out, appearing within a range of 300 meters around him. Chapter 1506. The blood-colored sword lights flew towards Long Yu from 2 different directions. Long Yu didn't do anything else. He just constructed the assimilation field and carefully observed the 2 blood-colored sword light. When the 2 blood-colored sword lights flew into the range of the assimilation field, their power immediately began to be assimilated. Within the assimilation field, the 2 blood-red sword lights gradually became smaller and smaller. Their power was constantly being assimilated by the assimilation field, becoming a part of the assimilation field. Within this range, they unceasingly attacked Long Yu, but they were also unceasingly being weakened. Unfortunately, Long Yu had only cultivated the first level of the assimilation field. Every breath of time, he could only assimilate and absorb 1% of the sword's power. From the moment the blood-red sword light entered the assimilation field and flew to Long Yu's side, it only needed 2 breaths of time. In other words, the assimilation field only absorbed 2% of its power. This weakening was basically equivalent to nothing. The effect of the first stage of the assimilation field is really too weak. Let's continue cultivating. Long Yu frowned. He didn't dodge and was directly hit by the 2 blood-colored sword lights. They pierced his arm and chest. Then, he circulated the devil dust heart, and his injuries began to rapidly recover. In any case, the 2 blood-colored sword lights from Red Oriole weren't very powerful. Long Yu couldn't be bothered to waste time dodging them. The 3 of them continued to cultivate the assimilation field secret technique on the stone steel. Although the first stage of the assimilation field could only assimilate 1% of the power of the enemy's attack in every breath of time, if they cultivated it to a higher level, the effect should be pretty good. As for Moonsong, she continued to absorb the first-grade Heaven Crystal-grade creation item. She continued to expand the territory of her small world. Then, her martial Dao realm constantly approached the 6th-stage sovereign realm. She believed that once she finished absorbing the creation item, she would be able to step into the 6th-stage sovereign realm. At that time, everyone's overall strength would be even stronger. As time passed, everyone kept paying attention to the teleportation formation in the center of the room. As long as they didn't go there, the teleportation formation would always be there. Since they had already finished the treasure checkpoint, and they had killed the 4 powerful foreign races of the Divine Water Race, there wouldn't be any more foreign races appearing. The eroding Moon Ancient region encouraged cultivators to improve their strength in the process of exploration. Therefore, they weren't prohibited from cultivating in the same place. Of course, they couldn't cultivate for too long, and the time given by the eroding moon ancient region wasn't too much. According to the experiences of the predecessors, cultivators could cultivate in the same room for 72 hours, which was 7 days. If they didn't advance after 7 days, all their points would be deducted, and they would be directly sent out of the eroding moon ancient domain. This was also the conclusion that Jian Runhao and Shi Wanqing of the Nine Nether clan had come to. These two fellows were extremely wretched, and didn't dare to advance. Every time they entered the Eclipse Moon ancient domain, they would stop at the first treasure checkpoint and cultivate for 7 days before being teleported out. Of course, Long Yu and the others weren't as cowardly as them. It was necessary for him to continue moving forward. If it was possible, he even wanted to go to the 6th and 7th regions. If he could obtain the inheritance of a deity, his future path of cultivation would be even smoother. About 3 days passed. Long Yu and the other two had finally reached the 3rd stage of the field assimilation secret technique. The stone tablet was no longer of any use to them. It was also at this time that Moon Song finally finished absorbing the 1st grade sky crystal grade creation item. Her aura skyrocketed, rising to the level of a 6th stage dominator. In this way, Moon Song's basic strength had more than tripled. Her overall strength had greatly increased. The current Moon Song wasn't that afraid even when facing a 7th stage dominator from a foreign race. The difference in basic strength alone had been reduced to a certain extent. It wasn't that difficult to make up for the 3-fold difference in basic strength between a 6th stage dominator and a 7th stage dominator. Of course, Moon Song wouldn't be able to face a relatively strong 7th stage dominator by herself. If she encountered such an opponent, she would have to rely on Consort Yu. Moon Song, come and cultivate the field assimilation. Let's test out its effects first. Long Yu said to Red Oriole. Then, he continued to construct the field assimilation next to him so that Red Oriole could attack him. Once again, Red Oriole condensed 2 blood-colored sword beams and sent them flying towards Long Yu. During her previous experiment, she had discovered that the assimilation field took effect according to time. Therefore, she had deliberately slowed down the speed at which the 2 blood-colored sword beams flew. When the 2 blood-colored sword lights entered the range of the assimilation field, Long Yu discovered that the assimilation field was constantly consuming its power. At the same time, however, it was also weakening the power of the 2 sword lights, assimilating them into a part of the assimilation field. Weakening by 9% with every breath, the 3rd stage of the field assimilation isn't bad. If the weakening is fixed, it'll be very effective against existences with higher basic strength. Long Yu's heart skipped a beat. Then, he said to Consort Yu, Senior Consort Yu, why don't you try attacking me? Immortal Qi surged, and a strand of immortal sword Qi tore through the air. Very quickly, it stabbed into Long Yu's field assimilation. Similarly, in just a breath's time, the power of the immortal sword Qi was weakened by 9%. Of course, in just that one breath's time, the immortal sword Qi had already landed on Long Yu's body. After all, the speed of the attack was just too fast. The field assimilation could weaken the opponent's attack, but it couldn't stop it. One of Long Yu's arms was immediately chopped off. However, he used the demon dust heart, and in just a few breaths' time, he was able to reconstruct his own arm. Since it's a fixed percentage weakening, this martial arts secret technique is still useful. Based on this pattern, if I can cultivate it to the peak of the 9th stage, I'll be able to weaken the opponent's attack by 81% with every breath. Long Yu narrowed his eyes. If he could reach that level, the assimilation field would truly be too powerful. Unfortunately, they didn't have the cultivation method for the next few levels. Even if they could reach the 6th level, the effect would be several times better than it was now. If this field assimilation was used in conjunction with other techniques, it would be more likely for the weaker group to defeat the stronger group. Unfortunately, they were only at the third stage of the field assimilation, so it couldn't play any decisive role in battle. Against the strong, it could only weaken them slightly, but it still wouldn't be able to stop the opponent's attack. However, in a battle between experts of the same cultivation level, the field assimilation would give them an absolute advantage. Everyone tested out the effects of the field assimilation, and then Long Yu attacked Red Oriole. He found that whenever his attacks got close to Red Oriole, they would be directly blocked by the power of the cross-shaped star pendant. The cross-shaped star pendant can block countless dragon breath of the 9 underworlds like yours. Try using a stronger technique, Red Oriole said to Long Yu. Long Yu nodded. The dragon breath of the 9 underworlds was the strongest attack among his innate magics, but it couldn't break through the cross-shaped star pendant's defense at all. The cross-shaped star pendant's defense consumed the power stored in the pendant. Unfortunately, the stored power was recovering at every moment. In other words, the destructive power of the dragon breath of the 9 underworlds could not make the cross-shaped star pendant consume more power than it could recover. If the dragon breath of the 9 underworlds could also be infused with a shadow essence, its destructive power would increase by 10 times, and it could be used as a regular combat technique. Unfortunately, it's still far from enough. With this thought, Long Yu switched to another attack. The aura of the Mad God's descent enveloped Long Yu's entire body. Then, he raised his fist and attacked Red Oriole. The Mad God's descent could immediately amplify the power of Long Yu's Berserker runes by 10 times. This was a derivative technique of the Berserker celestial body after he cultivated it to a certain level. However, although the power of Long Yu's punch was stronger than the dragon breath of the 9 underworlds, it still couldn't break through the cross-shaped star pendant's defense. It's about time. There's a reaction. Continue, Red Oriole immediately said. She kept carefully observing the state of the cross-shaped star pendant. If she could figure out the limits of this divine source-like artifact's defense, it would be easier for her to deal with it in the future. Long Yu kept punching and releasing Berserker runes, covering his entire body. Then, the Berserker celestial body kept stacking up, and the Berserker fist kept blasting out, causing the cross-shaped star pendant to flicker with dazzling starlight. It's about time. Very soon, Red Oriole saw that the cross-shaped star pendant's energy had been depleted by half. At this time, Long Yu had already punched out more than 40 times. In other words, every punch that Long Yu threw out now had more than 50 times the destructive power of the Berserker runes. At this time, each of his punches consumed about 2% of the cross-shaped star pendant's energy. Even if it recovered, it wouldn't be able to recover in time. Based on this situation, as long as Long Yu stacked up to 100 Berserker celestial body, he would be able to shatter the cross-shaped star pendant's defense in a few punches. Of course, under 100 Berserker celestial body tempering, Long Yu wouldn't be able to withstand the power of the Berserker runes. In this state, Long Yu wouldn't be able to throw more than a few punches. This also meant that with the cross-shaped star pendant, Red Oriole's defense was already on par with Long Yu's strongest destructive power. Even if Long Yu attacked Red Oriole with all his might, he might not be able to kill Red Oriole before he broke through the cross-shaped star pendant's defense. On the contrary, as long as Red Oriole found time to attack Long Yu, she would be able to easily kill and injure Long Yu, causing him to lose energy even faster. Not bad. Long Yu's eyes lit up. Now, he could finally relax. Even in the eroding moon ancient domain, there weren't many existences that could break through the cross-shaped star pendant's defense with a single strike. At the very least, Consort Yu admitted that she couldn't break through the cross-shaped star pendant's defense with a single strike after giving it a try. This greatly increased Red Oriole's safety. Before we continue, I've thought of an idea. Long Yu's eyes shone brightly. Through his previous attack on Red Oriole, he had thought of a very good method that would make their next operation easier and more assured. Chapter 1507. When Long Yu thought of this idea, he immediately took action. He asked the three women to wait for him for a while before he condensed dozens of primordial desolate afterimages and lined them up in front of him. Then, Long Yu continued to use Berserker Fist Cannon after stacking 40 to 50 layers of Berserker power. Berserker Divine Runes condensed on Long Yu's fist as he punched out, instantly blasting a primordial desolate afterimage into pieces. Then, Long Yu's Berserker Fist Cannon was stacked up by another layer. Although this was a waste of power, to the current Long Yu, a waste of power was nothing. In any case, during the 7 days of cultivation, he had already self-destructed his fleshly body and reconstructed his fleshly body. Moreover, his power had been restored to its peak. If this continued, the duration of the battle would be shortened by a lot, but Long Yu would be able to superimpose over 100 layers of Berserker Heaven power the moment he passed through the teleportation circle. If he encountered any difficult opponents, he would be able to finish them off in one move. When Long Yu shattered all the primordial desolate afterimages in the field, he smiled and nodded at the three women. "All right, let's go." The three women knew what Long Yu was doing, so they couldn't help but nod their heads. They knew that Long Yu would be able to maintain his strongest battle power from the start, and would obviously have the upper hand in the following battles. The four of them passed through the teleportation array in the center of the room and arrived in another room. They were still surrounded by walls made of white light. There was nothing in this room except for an empty space. However, this was clearly an illusion. This was because they were attacked by an invisible force as soon as they entered. It's a mental attack. There's a soul in this room. Long Yu immediately realized something. This made him grit his teeth and feel a little uncomfortable. He had stacked over 100 layers of Berserker Fist Cannon on his body, but he just happened to encounter a soul that the Berserker Divine Runes couldn't deal with. This feeling made him feel extremely sullen. Fortunately, it was a soul and not some other strange race. After all, he had his own methods to deal with the soul. When he was a rank 1 sovereign, he had used his own methods to kill a rank 5 sovereign, let alone now that he was a rank 3 sovereign. Balanced Light. Without any hesitation, Red Oriole cast the Balanced Light and strengthened the four of them. Everyone's spiritual senses and perception abilities were increased tenfold. Very soon, they could sense the existence of the 4 soul race members. Illusory Field. Long Yu originally wanted to use the pure world body to kill these soul race beings, but on second thought, he thought of the illusory field. He didn't of the illusory field without any hesitation and activated of the first grade god formation. He wanted of transforming the 4 soul beings from their illusory state into their physical state. Long Yu did not know if this would work, but without a doubt, if it succeeded, then it would be much easier to deal with the soul race in the future. The result didn't disappoint him. The 4 soul race clansmen hid in different places in the room. However, Long Yu's illusory field immediately enveloped them. Then, Long Yu urged his power. Their invisible soul bodies condensed into soul entities. Everyone was overjoyed by this turn of event. Berserk God's Walk. Berserker Fist Cannon. Long Yu executed 2 moves in succession, and his figure instantly vanished from sight. In the next moment, he'd already appeared in front of one of the soul race clansmen. After that, he smashed out with his fist and instantly shattered the condensed soul body. A technique like the illusory field was rare, but it wasn't too strange for the soul race. This was because the illusory field often appeared on the battlefield between the soul race, the human race, and the monster race. This was a weapon used to deal with the soul race, so how could the army not make good use of it? Of course, a certain amount of talent was needed to successfully cultivate the illusory field. Therefore, not every soul race clansman would be able to see it on the battlefield. They would only use it in some relatively large battles. When Long Yu executed the illusory field and condensed the 4 soul race clansmen's soul shadows, Long Yu instantly killed one of them with the Berserker Fist Cannon. Its soul was torn into pieces. Even if it transformed into an intangible soul shadow again, it would not be able to come back to life. At the same time, Red Oriole unleashed her innate divine ability, which was infused with the essence of wood origin, at one of the soul race beings. The blood-colored whip carried with it boundless destructive power towards the mind and soul. It instantly descended upon the body of a sixth-phase soul race being. The blood-red whip carried destructive power towards the mind and soul. At this moment, it exploded and directly shattered the condensed soul. After the soul shadows condensed into a physical body, the soul race could be said to have fallen into an extremely disadvantageous position. This was because once they became physical, they could be hit by ordinary attack. Moreover, their essence was still their soul, so they would be injured by soul attacks. In this way, no matter what attack it was, it could cause great damage to the soul race. In particular, these soul race clansmen did not even have the time to react. They wanted to sneak attack Long Yu's group of 4, but in the end, Long Yu directly reacted and used the illusory field, instantly stupefying them. However, after 2 of them died, the remaining 2 seventh-phase soul race sovereigns finally reacted. Consort Yu originally wanted to deal with one of them, but when her divine demon sword Chi landed on the soul race clansman, the soul race clansman instantly turned into a shadow. Even the illusory field could not transform it back into a physical state. Clearly, this soul race clansman had used some tyrannical method that caused the illusory field to lose its effectiveness, allowing it to maintain the state of a soul shadow. At the same time, the mind and soul power of the soul race clansman burst forth. It was actually a destructive storm formed from wood element genesis power that swept towards the battlefield. If an ordinary cultivator was sucked into such a storm, their soul would definitely be destroyed by the tyrannical destructive power within. However, the soul race clansman had used this move, which was exactly what Long Yu wanted. World-cleansing soul mirror. Long Yu's figure flashed and turned around. His entire body was covered in a layer of world-cleansing soul mirror, and he directly charged into the soul race clansman's destructive storm. In the next instant, the rebounding power descended on the soul race clansman's body, and directly swept it into the soul race clansman's body. Instantly, there was no sound. The soul race clansman's rebounding power had been directly killed, and the soul race clansman completely dissipated just like that. Against the soul race, Long Yu had especially many methods, and they were all targeted. The world-cleansing body was a martial arts secret technique that was even more of the soul race's nemesis than the illusion field. Although the soul race clansman could restrain Long Yu's illusion field, it could not do anything to the world-cleansing body. In other words, if Long Yu increased his martial arts realm by another 2 ranks and reached the soul race clansman's 5th rank, then even if he stood here alone, no soul race clansman below the demigod level would be able to harm him. This was the terror of the world-cleansing body. It's a pity that the foreign races killed here will all be retrieved by the eroding moon ancient region. Otherwise, I could see if these soul race clansmen's small worlds have any shadow-type divine character essences. Right now, Long Yu was rather lacking in shadow essence. After all, a single shadow essence could greatly increase his strength. There was only one soul race clansman left in the battlefield. Long Yu did not want to fight with the 3 women over it, so he left it to Moon Song. As for the remaining soul race clansmen, Long Yu focused on using the illusion field to deal with it. Even if it wanted to return to its illusory state, it could not do so. It could only condense into a physical soul body and fly around the room, trying to escape. Unfortunately, Moon Song's attack arrived at this moment. The starry sky splitting slash crashed down. Even a 7th-rank soul race clansman could not withstand it. The soul race did not know how to cultivate defensive techniques against physical attacks, so it had no way of defending against the starry sky splitting slash. It took a long time to describe, but in reality, killing the 4 soul race clansmen had only taken an instant. From the moment Long Yu killed the first soul race clansman, a teleportation array had appeared in the middle of the room. The last Soul Race clansman had been fleeing towards the teleportation array, but it had not made it in time. This showed how fast Long Yu and the others had moved. Let's calculate the points. Everyone's points were different. After all, they had killed different numbers of Soul Race clansmen. If they passed this checkpoint, they would lose another 10 points. At that time, Consort Yu would still have 100 points, Long Yu would have 90 points, Red Oriole would have 80 points, and Moon Song would have 70 points. This way, there would be a difference of 30 points between the highest and lowest of the four. However, there was nothing they could do about it. Only by killing Soul Race clansmen could they obtain extra points. Most of the time, there was no way to control who killed the Soul Race clansmen. For example, if Long Yu hadn't activated the world-cleansing Soul Mirror to reflect the Soul Race clansman's soul destruction storm, even Consort Yu would have had to expend a lot of energy to deal with it. She would not have been able to take care of the others during the battle. Just now, Moon Song had been able to kill the last Soul Race clansman because the other three had gone easy on her. They had done their best to balance everyone's points, allowing all four of them to reach the back of the group. After killing off the 4 Soul Race clansmen, Red Oriole giggled. It would be great if we kept running into Soul Race clansmen. Others might have a hard time dealing with them, but for us it's really easy. Isn't it all because of Long Yu? Consort Yu chuckled. She hadn't expected Long Yu to be able to suppress Soul Race clansmen to such an extent. He had instantly killed 4 Soul Race clansmen. To be honest, even 4 Consort Yus against 4 Soul Race clansmen wouldn't have been as efficient as Long Yu's. His world-cleansing body and illusory field were just too effective against Soul Race clansmen. Chapter 1508. The 4 of them passed through the teleportation formation and continued forward. This time, they were ambushed as soon as they arrived. Unexpectedly, there were 4 metal-bodied Abyss Race experts. 2 of them were peak 7th phase sovereigns, and the other 2 were 6th phase sovereigns. When Long Yu and the others stepped into the teleportation formation and were teleported to this room, the 4 Abyss Race experts immediately attacked them. "Careful!" Long Yu shouted. First, he faced a peak 7th phase sovereign Abyss Race expert. The expert's metal body was like a cannonball that rumbled forward. Long Yu only had time to barely conjure up a layer of the Warmonger's celestial body barrier before the other party had already bombarded his body, directly shattering the Warmonger's celestial body barrier, and then smashing half of his body into pieces. The Abyss Race was already known for their powerful physical bodies. Now that they launched a sneak attack, no one could stop them. Half of Long Yu's body was smashed into pieces. Fortunately, the battlecruiser Celestial Barrier had slightly blocked the opponent. Otherwise, even the Devil Dust Heart would have been destroyed. That would have been a big problem. If Long Yu was already in such a state, there was no need to talk about the others. Consort Yu was slightly better off. Her strength was extremely tyrannical. With a wave of her hand, a black and white Devil Immortal Barrier was formed, blocking the attack of the peak 7th phase Sovereign Abyss Race expert. Long Yu was most worried about Moon Song and Red Oriole. Red Oriole was better off. With the cross-shaped star pendant, she instantly condensed the defensive power of the stars. Moreover, the sneak attack on her was only from a 6th phase Sovereign Abyss Race expert. Moon Song, on the other hand, didn't have the defense of the cross-shaped star pendant. Fortunately, her reaction wasn't slow. In an instant, she used 9 Firmament's Star Flash. This was a high-grade, unbounded martial technique that she had already cultivated to the transcendent realm. The moment the opponent collided with her, her entire body shone with starlight, and her entire body flickered far away. Although Moonsong's shoulder was smashed by the opponent this time and her entire shoulder was shattered, she also cultivated the Devil Dust Heart. Even if her shoulder was shattered, she could still slowly recover. However, the Abyss Race's sneak attack disrupted the formation of Long Yu's group. Moon Song used Starflash in the 9 firmaments and retreated into the distance. Although Red Oriole was protected by the cross star pendant, she was still sent flying quite a distance. There was no need to talk about Long Yu. Half of his body had been smashed into pieces, and he was sent flying far away. He was even further away from the other 3. Only Consort Yu was still near the teleportation point. She used her Immortal Devil Barrier to block the attack of a peak 7th phase Sovereign Realm Abyss Race expert. In the Eroding Moon Ancient Domain, every checkpoint was filled with extreme danger. If it wasn't from other foreign tribes, it would be from the checkpoint itself. The good news was that Long Yu still maintained close to 100 levels of Berserker Heaven's momentum. After more than half of his body had been smashed, he knew that his opponent's speed was extremely fast. It was very likely that he would be hit again. If he was hit again, it was very likely that his Devil Dust Heart would be damaged. This was something that he absolutely could not allow to happen. At the same time, Long Yu couldn't rely on his illusory form to protect himself. If he did, what would he do if the peak 7th phase Sovereign Realm Abyss Race expert attacked the others? Even Consort Yu wouldn't be able to withstand 2 peak 7th phase Sovereign Realm Abyss Race experts at the same time, let alone Red Oriole and Moon Song. Moreover, Long Yu couldn't use Illusory Field at the moment. The others were too far away from him. If he wanted to affect and protect them, he would expend a lot of energy. Therefore, right now, Long Yu only had one solution. 9 Underworld Military Order. During this period of time, Long Yu had turned many corpses of foreign races into dark creatures, and had placed them in the Dragon Bone Ancient Tower. Among them were 2 Ice God race members who were at the 7th phase of the Dominator rank, as well as several other outsiders who were at the 6th phase of the Dominator rank. After all, during his training at the Demigod College, he had obtained many corpses of powerful foreign races. He definitely had to refine these corpses into darkness creatures. Most importantly, Long Yu's martial realm had increased. The speed at which he could refine the corpses of powerful foreign races into darkness creatures had increased by many times. If he wanted to refine the corpses of 7th phase Sovereign Realm Abyss Race corpses into darkness creatures, it would only take a month. These past few months of training were enough for Long Yu to refine so many darkness creatures. Now, Long Yu needed time to reconstruct the half of his body that had been destroyed. Therefore, he could only use the darkness creatures in the 9 Underworld Military Order to hold off the peak 7th phase Sovereign Realm Abyss Race expert for a while. Of course, it was basically impossible for 2 ordinary 7th phase Sovereign Realm Abyss Race experts to fight against the peak Abyss Race expert. However, with the help of 5 6th phase Sovereign Realm Abyss Race experts, it was definitely not a problem for them to hold off the expert for a while. The 2 Ice God Race Abyss Race experts attacked and directly released Revelation rank 9 Underworld Divine characters, trapping the peak 7th phase Sovereign Realm Abyss Race expert. However, the Abyss Race expert's metal body suddenly moved like rolling thunder. The terrifying momentum contained boundless destructive power. With just a simple charge, the Abyss Race expert broke through the encirclement of the dark creatures. This Abyss Race expert was in existence with extremely high intelligence. It knew that the darkness creatures that Long Yu had summoned weren't the key. If they wanted to pass through the Eroding Moon Ancient Regions checkpoint, they had to kill Long Yu's main body first. Therefore, the Abyss Race expert directly rushed out of the encirclement of the dark creatures and wanted to continue attacking Long Yu. Its metal body released bursts of flowing light, and it was extremely eye-catching in this pitch-black space. However, Long Yu's thoughts flickered, and the surrounding dark creatures gathered together. Each of them condensed a deep level 9 Nether Divine language. It was like a dark cage that continuously trapped the Abyss Race member. The Abyss Race member struggled left and right, but it wasn't something that could be broken in a short time. Taking advantage of this period of time, Long Yu quickly activated the Demon Dust Heart, allowing his damaged body to continuously reconstruct itself. Very quickly, he recovered to his peak condition. As Long Yu's physical body completely recovered, the sixth phase Great Sovereign Darkness creature was completely smashed by the Abyss Race expert. The Darkness creature's entire body was smashed into pieces and completely disintegrated. Long Yu raised his hand and directly recalled the remaining Darkness creatures into the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. Then, he himself entered the space inside the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. Dragon Bone Break activate. Long Yu's affinity with the ancient Dragon Bone Tower had reached the highest level, the unparalleled realm. Furthermore, it was a top-tier unparalleled combat weapon. It wasn't that easy to block the Dragon Bone Break. Even the peak 7th phase Great Sovereign Abyss Race expert charged towards the ancient Dragon Bone Tower with its extremely powerful physical body. The two sides collided in midair, and the terrifying power actually forced both sides back. If it had been a 6th phase Great Sovereign Abyss Race expert, Long Yu might have had the upper hand in this collision. Unfortunately, the opponent's cultivation level was just too high. Even with the 9 nether heavenly screen protecting the ancient Dragon Bone Tower, it had completely shattered at this moment, nearly causing the ancient Dragon Bone Tower to shatter as well. However, with that, the other party was also sent flying, and his ferocious momentum was stopped for a moment. In the next instant, Long Yu quietly left the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. Using the Berserker's divine steps, he instantly flashed behind the 7th phase Great Sovereign Abyss Race expert and threw a punch at the giant Abyss Race expert that was glowing with a metallic luster. At this moment, Long Yu only felt a wave of Berserker's divine runes circulating within his body. This gave him an extremely satisfying feeling when he punched out. This was something he had never felt when he used the Berserker Fist Cannon before. Berserker Heavenly Body has finally broken through to the transformative realm. This punch was called the Berserker Dragon Fist. It was a technique that could only be used after one's comprehension of the Berserker Fist Cannon had reached the transcendent realm. The Berserker Dragon Fist was 5 times stronger than the Berserker Fist Cannon, but it could only be used when the Berserker Fist Cannon was stacked 100 times. It was worth noting that the Berserker Dragon Fist's damage to the body was just too great. Right now, Long Yu's physical body was already very strong. However, this punch didn't even hit the Abyss Race expert before his body started to crack. Blood splattered all over his body. After all, this was an ultimate martial skill that was 5 times stronger than the Berserker Fist Cannon. This punch could be said to be the essence of the Berserker Fist Cannon. Adding on the Berserker Fist Cannon's 100 times Berserker Fist Cannon's power, it was undoubtedly equivalent to exploding out with 500 times the power of the Berserker's divine runes. The punch instantly landed on the body of the peak 7th stage Sovereign Realm Abyss Race expert. In the next moment, the terrifying Berserker's divine runes erupted like the roar of a Berserker dragon. With endless pressure, the Abyss Race expert was sent flying. Long Yu could feel that this punch had already injured the Abyss Race expert, and it wasn't light either. It could be said that the injury was as serious as the one Long Yu had suffered. However, Long Yu had the Devil Dust Heart, so he could easily recover. As for the Abyss Race expert, after suffering this heavy blow, it immediately split into several streams of metal liquid. Then, they rushed towards Long Yu from several directions. The terrifying power came from all directions, causing Long Yu to break out in a cold sweat as he reconstructed his damaged body. The opponent's reaction speed was too fast. Fighting the Abyss Race expert head-on, especially a peak 7th stage Sovereign Realm Abyss Race expert, was too difficult. However, it was also very exciting. Long Yu's heart was filled with excitement, and his heartbeats sped up. This kind of head-on collision could stimulate the strongest power of Long Yu's Berserker's divine runes. It would allow Long Yu to comprehend the Berserker Fist Cannon to the final realm. Again, Berserker Dragon Fist. The corner of Long Yu's mouth curled up. his entire body was covered by the Berserker's divine runes. At this moment, every time he used the Berserker Dragon Fist, he could stack 5 levels of the Berserker Fist Cannon. In other words, he could still stack the Berserker Fist Cannon, but the higher the stack, the more damage Long Yu's Berserker Divine Runes would do to his body. Chapter 1509. After Long Yu recalled the dark creatures and returned to the Dragon Bone Tower, he continued to use the Berserk Dragon Fists and threw them at the Abyss race. Berserk Divine Runes continued to fly in the air, and as Long Yu's physical body continued to disintegrate and regenerate, the battle entered an extremely intense stage. The Abyss race transformed into several streams of metal liquid and attacked Long Yu from different directions. They were like several long metal dragons that condensed into a metal whirlwind in the air. It was unfair for Long Yu to compete purely in terms of physical strength. After all, the Abyss race had the strongest physical body, and it was also a peak 7th phase sovereign. It was a super powerful existence that was only one step away from the demigod level. However, Long Yu now had more than 100 stacks of Berserk heavenly power, so he could just barely defend and attack. If the Abyss race gave Long Yu a chance to recover and hit him head-on, it would be over for Long Yu. There would be no chance for him to survive. Therefore, he couldn't stop using the Berserk Dragon Fists for even a moment. Once the metal liquid came at him, Long Yu would use the Berserk Divine Steps to change his position, and then use the Berserk Dragon Fists from the side or the back. The powerful power of the Berserk Divine Runes was enough to blow away the metal liquid and even cause some damage to it. With the unparalleled speed of the Berserk Divine Steps, Long Yu could just barely hold on. However, once the Abyss race became familiar with Long Yu's speed and moves, it would probably launch a round of extremely powerful attacks. At that time, Long Yu would have no choice but to turn into nothingness or use the illusion field on the other side. Consort Yu had a slight advantage against the other peak 7th phase sovereign Abyss race expert. Her black and white demonic chi swirled in the air, condensing into streaks of sword chi that attacked the Abyss race expert that had already turned into a metal liquid. Surrounded by the sword chi, the Abyss race could only passively resist. Even if it wanted to rush out of the sword chi, it would have to endure extremely powerful attacks. However, the members of the Abyss tribe wouldn't just sit and wait for their death. Thus, even though one of the streams of metal was destroyed by the divine demon sword chi, they still managed to protect the other 2 streams of metal as they broke through the obstruction and shot toward Consort Yu's main body. Consort Yu raised her hand, and the immortal and demonic chi swirled around her. Although the 2 types of energy were extremely different and even diametrically opposed, Consort Yu combined them perfectly to form an extremely powerful immortal and demonic barrier. Innate divine abilities, martial skills, combat weapons, all kinds of different methods, all of them used the immortal and devil chi as the foundation to unleash different effects against their enemies. The 2 streams of metal liquid that had broken through were directly blocked by the immortal and devil chi, and were unable to attack Consort Yu at all. However, although Consort Yu seemed to have an absolute advantage, such a dense barrage of sword chi consumed a lot of her energy. Looking at the strength of the Abyss race expert, Consort Yu probably wouldn't be able to kill it even after she exhausted all of her energy. Consort Yu saw that the situation was quite urgent, so she wanted to quickly defeat her opponent and help the others. On the other side, Red Oriole's situation was relatively more relaxed. She relied on the cross-shaped star pendant, which was a quasi-divine source artifact, so it was doubtlessly unlikely that she would be harmed by a 6th phase sovereign Abyss race expert. However, the cross-shaped star pendant's defensive capabilities were also limited. Long Yu had tried before. Under 100 levels of wild battling heaven's power, he only needed a few punches to break through the cross-shaped star pendant's defense. Although the cross-shaped star pendant's defensive capabilities would naturally recover, the recovery speed wouldn't be that fast. It was the same now. Although the 6th Phase Sovereign Abyss Race Expert wasn't as strong as the peak 7th Phase Sovereign Abyss Race Expert that Long Yu was facing, its attack power was still shocking. This was especially true if the opponent charged at her from close range, and the cross-shaped star pendant's defensive barrier would take a lot of damage. Therefore, Red Oriole couldn't just stand there and let the opponent attack her. She had to weaken the Abyss Race Expert as much as possible while the cross-shaped star pendant still had its defensive capabilities. Otherwise, it was very likely that she would be killed when the cross-shaped star pendant broke. Fortunately, Red Oriole was currently a 5th Phase Sovereign, and her basic strength wasn't too far off from the opponent's. She could use some martial skills, divine abilities, and combat weapons to make up for the difference in power. As the blood-colored divine characters flew out, Red Oriole continued to use all sorts of techniques. The Demon Shadowbind, a high-grade unbounded rank martial skill, was formed and countless blood-colored lines appeared out of thin air, trapping the Abyss Race Expert. The Abyss Race Expert struggled left and right, but he couldn't break free of the Demon Shadowbind. After all, this was a high-grade unbounded rank martial skill that Red Oriole had cultivated to a transcendent level. Most importantly, the Demon Shadowbind was now 7 times as powerful as before. This sudden burst of power shocked Red Oriole, but the Abyss Race Expert was going to suffer a lot of damage. The blood-colored whip suddenly lashed out. Without any hesitation, Red Oriole used her most powerful attack, the innate divine ability that had been infused with the essence of wood element, Genesis. The blood-colored whip had the terrifying effect of directly attacking her opponent's soul. This was especially true for the Abyss race. Although their physical bodies were very strong, their souls weren't that great. The blood-colored whip slammed into the Abyss Race Expert, easily destroying 10 to 20% of its soul. The Abyss Race Expert realized that the situation had taken a turn for the worse. In the end, it split into several streams of metal liquid, forcibly breaking free from the Demon Shadowbind. Of course, there was one more stream of metal liquid that couldn't break free. It was completely trapped by the Demon Shadowbind, and the blood-colored whip continued to attack it. Soon, that stream of metal liquid dissipated, and the soul within it was completely destroyed. Just like that, a portion of the 6th Phase Sovereign Abyss Race Expert was killed. However, the following battle wasn't easy for Red Oriole. The Abyss Race Expert had been trapped by the Demon Shadowbind once, and it couldn't be trapped a second time. Moreover, the Abyss Race Expert had split into 2 streams of metal liquid, and the other 6 streams of metal liquid were attacking Red Oriole from different directions. Even with the demonic Shadowbind, it was impossible to trap so many extremely fast targets at once. What came next was the most difficult moment for Red Oriole. Even though the 2 sides were only 1 level apart, those who could enter the eroding Moon Ancient region were the elites of their respective races. The Abyss race's 6th Phase Sovereign Realm Expert in front of them could easily deal with a 7th Phase Sovereign Realm Expert in the outside world. On the other side, Moon Song was dealing with another 6th Phase Sovereign Abyss Race Expert. Even though Moon Song didn't have the defense of the Cross Star Pendant, she could rely on 9 Firmament's Star Flash's speed and control to deal with the Abyss Race Expert with ease. Most importantly, she and her opponent were both 6th Phase Sovereigns, so their basic strength was about the same. Of course, even so, Moon Song couldn't fight her opponent head-on. After all, her opponent was the Abyss race, a race with one of the strongest physical bodies in the entire Langya galaxy. Unless there was no other choice, fighting against the Abyss Race Expert with brute strength was the same as an idiot. After 9 Firmament's Star Flash reached the Transcendent Realm, every time it flashed out, it could shatter a spatial barrier and condense the power of Star Divine characters to bind the opponent in place for a period of time. In the beginning, Moon Song used 9 Firmament's Star Flash 3 times in a row, and the Abyss Race Expert was foolishly trapped in place. By the time he caught up to her, Moon Song would slip away. Therefore, after 3 times, the Abyss Race expert knew that he couldn't catch up to Moon Song. Therefore, he completely split up, turning into 7 streams of metal liquid that chased after Moon Song from different directions. Their speed was even faster than when they had merged together. Long Yu and the others had seen the Abyss Race's methods many times. Therefore, Moon Song was already prepared for the Abyss Race expert to disintegrate into metal liquid. Star Scatter Chessboard. Star Soul Lock. The power of countless stars condensed and flickered in the air, combining to form a sealed area that blocked the 7 streams of metal liquid. Although it couldn't completely stop the Abyss Race expert from advancing, it made it difficult for him to move forward. Every time the Abyss Race expert took a step closer to Moon Song, the Star Scatter Chessboard and Star Soul Lock were activated at the same time to obstruct him. It was extremely disgusting. Moreover, the Abyss Race expert had disintegrated into 7 streams of metal liquid, which was just right for Moon Song. When the Abyss Race expert had merged together, Moon Song's attacks wouldn't have been able to penetrate the Abyss Race expert's body and cause any damage. However, the situation was different now. Star-splitting Sky Slash. The starry divine characters condensed into a huge blade light that slammed down heavily towards one of the streams of metallic liquid. It was as if the entire space was going to be torn apart. The power of the starry scattered chessboard and the starry soul locking divine formation pressed down on that stream of metallic liquid. The stream of metal liquid was already trapped. It wanted to escape, but it was too late. The speed of the star-splitting Sky Slash was just too fast. However, the Abyss Race expert was clearly prepared. He had already predicted that Moon Song would attack after she restrained it. Therefore, at this moment, the surface of the stream of metal glowed with a metallic luster, and a thick layer of defense appeared on its surface. Of course, the Abyss Race expert's theurgy didn't have such an external defensive method. It should be known that the Abyss Race's techniques were all used on the physical body. The Abyss Race expert's defensive method undoubtedly came from a battle weapon, or perhaps something of the absolute beginning divine grade. When the metallic luster of the defensive barrier shone, it blocked Moon Song's star-splitting Sky Slash. It couldn't even break through the barrier. This thing seems to have the same effect as the cross-star pendant. Could it be a similar divine source-grade item? Moon Song frowned slightly. If that was the case, she really couldn't kill the Abyss Race expert quickly. The 4 of them fought their own battles, and the battle fell into a stalemate. This was the most difficult battle they had encountered since entering the Eclipse Moon ancient region. However, this was clearly just the beginning. Chapter 15:10. Long Yu's side was on the verge of collapsing. Consort Yu's side also needed some time to defeat her opponent, and she had used up a large portion of her strength. Red Oriole's side had also achieved some results, but after her opponent turned into a metallic liquid, her demon shadow binding and other techniques were unable to restrain her. She could only rely on the cross-shaped star pendant to defend herself, and the situation was worrying. Moon Song wasn't in any danger, but it would take a lot of effort to kill her opponent, and it definitely wouldn't be something that could be done in a short amount of time. Domain assimilation. It really isn't that useful against a foreign race like the Abyss Race, who only fight with their physical bodies. Very quickly, Long Yu tested out the martial arts secret art he had just successfully cultivated, the assimilation field. However, he discovered that it was useless. Even if the opponent's physical body charged over or turned into a metallic liquid to stab over, the assimilation field would not weaken it. Domain assimilation could only weaken the power of divine characters, but it couldn't weaken the opponent's physical body. This was something Long Yu was certain of. The battlefield was in a bit of a stalemate, and Long Yu's side was clearly seen by the opponent as a breakthrough point. As long as they killed Long Yu first, Long Yu's peak 7th phase sovereign would be able to shift the battlefield and secure victory elsewhere. Thus, in the current situation, it could be said that none of them could die. If one of them died, the entire team might be wiped out. Of course, this checkpoint was very likely to send them out of the teleportation array after one of them died, just like the previous checkpoint. Even so, Long Yu didn't want one of the four of them to die. Long Yu wanted to achieve some results in this battle. However, it was a pity that the disparity between his martial arts realm and his opponents was simply too great. Right now, he was already at his limit. If he wanted to kill his opponent, it would be impossible for him to do so. It had to be known that his opponent was a peak 7th phase sovereign. Even if it was Consort Yu, she would need to expend a lot of effort to kill her opponent. Under such circumstances, Long Yu could only hold on and wait for Consort Yu to kill her opponent. Red Oriole should be able to hold on with the protection of the cross-shaped star pendant. Moon Song's situation was the complete opposite of Red Oriole's. Red Oriole was using all sorts of methods to control the Abyss Race's movement. Even after splitting into 7 metallic bodies, the Abyss Race member was still unable to approach Moon Song. However, it wasn't that easy for Moon Song to kill the Abyss Race member. The breakthrough point for Long Yu and the others was Consort Yu. As for the other party, he seemed to have noticed it as well. Without a doubt, Consort Yu was the strongest among the four of them. As for the others, they didn't want to make any mistakes. As long as they could hold on for a certain amount of time and wait for Consort Yu to finish off their opponents, everything would be fine. At this moment, the Abyss tribe member that had been trapped by Consort Yu's divine demon Sword Chi finally made its move. A pitch-black metal rod instantly flew out from his body. A terrifying power radiated from the black metal rod, and it actually knocked back Consort Yu's divine demon Sword Chi. It was the Abyss Race's battle weapon. Unlike the battle weapons of humans, demons, and other foreign races, the Abyss Race's battle weapons didn't contain any divine power. However, they were made from a special material in the Abyss that the Abyss Race resided in. The material was extremely sturdy, and when paired with the Abyss Race's powerful bodies, they could explode with power that far surpassed their own martial realm. The Abyss Race member tossed out this black rod. It swept through the air and directly dispersed the divine demon Sword Chi that Consort Yu had trapped it. Then, the rod crashed down on Consort Yu's head, and it looked like it was about to smash Consort Yu into a meat patty. Unfortunately, Consort Yu naturally wouldn't let the Abyss Race member get away with this. Aside from the damaged Absolute Beginning Divine Necklace, Consort Yu had other battle weapons in her hands. At this moment, a snow-white flying sword flew out from her bosom, and it instantly wrapped around the black rod with immortal light and Sword Chi. 6 streams of metallic liquid attacked from all directions, and the terrifying impact seemed like it was going to crush Consort Yu to pieces. However, the snow-white flying sword split into 6, and each of the flying swords was imbued with dense immortal chi. They easily blocked the 6 streams of metallic liquid. Clearly, Consort Yu hadn't used her full strength in the previous battles. This snow-white flying sword was an unparalleled battle weapon, and it had reached an unparalleled level of compatibility with Consort Yu. One had to know that Consort Yu was a peak 7th phase sovereign, and her battle weapon was close to the highest grade. Her compatibility with it had also reached the peak. This was definitely one of the most powerful methods anyone below the demigod realm could use. The 6 streams of metallic liquid couldn't break through Consort Yu's defenses at all. Instead, they retreated in 3 different directions. They were heading straight for where Long Yu, Red Oriole, and Moon Song were. This situation caused Consort Yu's expression to change. These 6 streams of metal liquid combined to form a peak 7th phase sovereign realm Abyss Race expert. The destructive power of each stream of metal liquid was tyrannical. No matter which one of the 3 was hit by it, they would basically die. Long Yu was already in a very dangerous situation. If 2 more streams of metallic liquid appeared, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. Although Red Oriole was protected by the cross-shaped star pendant, her defensive capabilities were limited. Under the attack of a peak 7th phase Sovereign Abyss race member's metallic liquid, she would probably be destroyed in just a few hits. As for Moonsong, although she could defend herself against the attack of a peak 7th phase Sovereign Abyss race member, a sudden ambush from a peak 7th phase Sovereign Abyss race member's metallic liquid would definitely cause her a lot of trouble. If she was accidentally hit by it, the situation would definitely be dire. Consort Yu's Snow White flying sword instantly split from 1 into 6, and then from 6 into 36. Phantom Immortal Sword. This was the name of Consort Yu's Snow White flying sword. It could split into 6 without limit, and each clone would have half of the original strength. In other words, the first time it split into 6, the overall strength of the Phantom Immortal Sword would triple. The second time it split into 36, the overall strength of the Phantom Immortal Sword would triple again. Right now, the Phantom Immortal Sword had split into 36 Snow White flying sword. They chased after the 6 streams of metallic liquid. Although their reactions were a step slower, they were still able to catch up to the other party before it attacked Long Yu and the others. Each side had 12 Phantom Immortal Sword clones. They condensed a boundless amount of immortal chi and tore through the air. The combined strength of these 12 Phantom Immortal Swords was equivalent to 3 times the original Phantom Immortal Sword's strength. It wasn't difficult to stop the 2 streams of metallic liquid. The key was to catch up to them first. The other party's speed was simply too fast. Most importantly, it didn't give any warning. It immediately slipped away from Consort Yu's side, wanting to ambush the others. By the time Consort Yu reacted, the other party had already flown quite a distance away. Long Yu and the other 2 were naturally aware of the situation. Red Oriole had no choice but to rely on the cross-shaped star pendant to block her opponent. Moonsong, on the other hand, continued to use Starflash in the 9 firmaments, relying on nimble evasion. At the same time, she constructed Star Scatter Formation and Astral Soul Lock Formation to slow down her opponent. Under such circumstances, the other party couldn't catch up to Moonsong no matter what. It was rather difficult to injure her. Of course, the other party's 2 streams of metallic liquid belonged to a peak 7th stage sovereign from the Abyss clan. With the addition of these 2 streams of metallic liquid, Moonsong's 2nd-rank god formation would quickly crumble. Fortunately, Consort Yu's Phantom Immortal Sword clones arrived after she used the 2nd-rank god formation to obstruct the other party for a while. Immortal Chi swirled around it, completely blocking the 2 streams of metallic liquid. However, the situation was the most critical in the other 2 areas. Consort Yu's 12 Phantom Immortal Sword clones flew directly towards Long Yu and Red Oriole. However, at this moment, the peak 7th stage sovereign from the Abyss clan that had been fighting Long Yu seemed to sense that Long Yu wasn't that strong. It actually split off 2 streams of metallic liquid. These 2 streams of metallic liquid, along with the other 2 streams of metallic liquid, flew towards Red Oriole at the same time. The metallic liquid that had been attacking Long Yu split off into 2 streams to obstruct Consort Yu's Phantom Immortal Sword clones. Immediately after, the 6 streams of metallic liquid that were flying towards Red Oriole actually fused together in midair, forming a giant metallic beast that smashed towards Red Oriole. Everything happened so quickly that no one was able to react. Even Consort Yu had never seen different types of metallic liquid from the Abyss clan fused together. This was probably some kind of hidden technique that outsiders rarely saw. In other words, very few members of the Abyss clan were able to use such a technique. These 2 7th phase Abyssal race sovereigns were working together. Their target was Red Oriole, and they wanted to kill her. Kacha! With a shattering sound, the cross-shaped star pendant on Red Oriole's chest dimmed. The starry defensive barrier it had formed was instantly destroyed by the giant metallic beast. The 6 metallic beasts that had fused together were actually stronger than a single Abyss clan member. With just one attack, the defensive barrier of the cross-shaped star pendant was shattered. Long Yu's heart tightened. He immediately wanted to help, but he was blocked by the remaining 4 streams of metallic liquid. He couldn't do anything at all. His berserker dragon fists kept blasting out, but he couldn't completely kill his opponent. Instead, his own body was constantly being destroyed. Consort Yu's phantom immortal sword also swept out in an attempt to stop the metallic beast. However, it was blasted away by the metallic beast, unable to stop its attack on Red Oriole. Illusion Field. At his wit's end, Long Yu could only use this technique again. The illusion field instantly formed, and then Long Yu mobilized all the power in his body. Before the metallic beast could attack Red Oriole, Long Yu turned Red Oriole into nothingness. The metallic beast's terrifying attack finally landed, but Red Oriole turned into nothingness. The opponent's attack missed. However, this consumed a great deal of Long Yu's own power. After all, Red Oriole was quite a distance away from him. He had to use several times the amount of power to turn Red Oriole into nothingness. Long Yu swallowed a recovery pill. Immediately afterwards, Consort Yu took advantage of this moment to bring out her fastest speed and strongest power. If she didn't use her full power, Red Oriole might really be killed by her opponent. Chapter 15:11. The snow-white necklace on Concubine Yu's fair neck was finally used by her. A wave of ethereal immortal energy instantly enveloped the entire space, condensing into a storm of immortal energy, surrounding the fused metal beast. Very quickly, the storm of immortal energy produced a boundless destructive power that bombarded the metal beast. Long Yu, on the other hand, was much more relaxed. Facing the siege of the 4 metal liquids, he continuously used the Berserk Heavenly Body, and also continuously used the Berserk Battle Dragon Fist, causing the layers of the Berserk Heavenly Power to stack higher and higher. At this moment, he had reached the 170th level of Battle Heavenly Power, which was unprecedented. This level of Berserk Fighting Heaven's power allowed Long Yu to unleash the might of a 7th stage Sovereign Realm expert with a casual punch. However, the damage to his body was extremely great. His fleshly body was constantly cracking, and there were times when his arm was broken by a single punch. However, at this time, each of his Berserk Dragon Fists could cause significant damage to the metal liquid formed by the 7th Phase Peak Sovereign Realm Abyss Race expert. More often than not, a single punch would cause the metal liquid to shatter. However, the reason why a metal liquid was because its shape was not fixed. Even if it cracked, it might not really hurt the opponent's vital parts. After all, it was a peak 7th Phase Sovereign expert from the Abyss Race. For Long Yu, it was too much for him to handle. Moon Song's situation was not too bad. After all, she was already a 6th Phase Sovereign. Her basic strength had increased, and she was able to withstand a 6th Phase Sovereign expert from the Abyss Race and 2 peak 7th Phase Sovereign experts from the Abyss Race. The key lay in Red Oriole. Even with Consort Yu's peak awakened Absolute beginning Divine Grade and her snow-white necklace, she was unable to kill the fused metal beasts in a short time. As for Red Oriole, without the metal beast's attacks, she was able to hold on. The defensive energy of the cross-shaped star pendant also began to recover. At this time, she used Demon Shadow Bind and Thousand Soul Lock. These 2 powerful moves directly trapped the metal beast. Countless streaks of divine demon sword chi followed closely behind, and finally, the fused body of metal liquid was sliced into pieces. However, after the metal beasts were cut into pieces, they split into 6 more metal beasts that scattered in all directions. It was really difficult to kill this kind of abyss race, but 4 symbols death prison. Countless death lines appeared in the field and enveloped one of the metal beasts. At the same time, Red Oriole condensed countless blood-colored whips that completely surrounded the metal beast. Even though it was a peak 7th Phase Sovereign expert from the Abyss Race, the metal beasts were only 1/7 of its power. Now, the 2 of them had chosen the same metal fluid to attack. No matter if it was the 4 symbols killing prison's death lines or Red Oriole's blood-colored whip, they could deal great damage to the soul. The mentally fragile Abyss race experts couldn't block them. In the next moment, the soul contained within the metal beasts was directly destroyed. When Consort Yu saw this, she condensed her immortal demon sword chi into a ball and trapped the other metal beasts, preventing them from escaping. After one of the metal beasts died, the situation was much better. Even if the 5 metal beasts merged again, they would not be as powerful as before. After Long Yu and Red Oriole used their killing moves, their opponents became even more focused on them. The 4 metal beasts around Long Yu attacked him even more fiercely. He had no time to deal with anything else. Meanwhile, the 6th phase sovereign expert from the Abyss race that Red Oriole was facing was also charging towards her. Its powerful physical strength almost completely broke through the defense of the cross-shaped star pendant. At this time, Consort Yu also knew that she could only rely on herself to kill these Abyss race beings. However, she had unleashed her full power from the very beginning, so she had already expended a large portion of her power. Thus, she had no choice but to swallow an alchemical pill to recover her power before continuing to attack the metallic liquid. Divine Demon Sword Chi rained down, and its sharp destructive power continued to slice the metallic liquid into pieces. Even though the metal beasts were continuously recovering, they could not stop Consort Yu's attack. Consort Yu was a peak 7th phase sovereign expert, and was even stronger than a single Abyss race being. Now that she was only facing 5 metal beasts, how could she lose? Destroying them was only a matter of time. As Consort Yu destroyed the metal beasts one after another, the pressure on the others also decreased. Whether it was Long Yu, Red Oriole, or Moon Song, they all felt much more relaxed. As Consort Yu finished off her opponents, she first chose to help Long Yu. This was because Long Yu had basically reached his limit. He had never stacked 200 stacks of Berserk heavenly power to this extent before. Every single punch he unleashed could cause his body to explode. If this were to continue, every single punch would cause him to self-destruct. Although Long Yu was temporarily not in danger of being killed by the Abyss race's metal beasts, there was no doubt that his situation was the most tense. Thus, Consort Yu chose him to help first. The immortal demon Sword Chi swept over, and Long Yu very cooperatively used the 4 symbols Death Prison. The metal beasts were destroyed by the 2 of them together. At this point, there was no need to worry about the other Abyss race beings. There was no teleportation door in the center of the room. It seemed that they had to kill all of their opponents first. But if that was the case, then wasn't this room the treasure trial? After all, the previous treasure trial also required them to kill all of their opponents. Long Yu and Consort Yu didn't think too much about it. They quickly went to help Red Oriole and Moon Song, and then immediately killed off the 2 fleeing 6th-phase Abyss race beings. All of the Abyss race beings had been killed, and at this time, everyone's score was very strange. This was because they hadn't killed the Abyss race beings themselves, but rather the metal beasts they had split off. An Abyss race being could split off 7 metal beasts, so Long Yu and the others' score had become average. At this time, the total score of the 4 was: Consort Yu 130 points, Long Yu 101 points, Red Oriole 89 points, and Moon Song 76 points. Of course, as the 2 massive purple crystal chests appeared in the center of the room, 2 of them each had to spend 10 points to open these 2 chests. Since Consort Yu and Long Yu had the highest score, the task of opening the chests was naturally left to the 2 of them. In addition to the fact that they had to pass this trial, each of them would have to deduct 10 points. The 4 of them still didn't have many points left. The 2 purple crystal chests filled everyone with anticipation. In the previous treasure trial, Long Yu had obtained a purple crystal chest and opened a cross-shaped pendant. Although it was damaged, it was still a quasi-divine source item, an extremely rare item. This time, 2 purple crystal chests had appeared. What would be inside? Long Yu took one purple crystal chest, and Consort Yu took the other. Then, the two of them each spent 10 points to open the chest. As Long Yu opened the amethyst chest, he discovered that a burst of black light was being emitted from it. What was stored inside was actually a shadow essence, causing him to be overjoyed. It was actually shadow essence. This thing was extremely beneficial to the current him. On the other hand, after Consort Yu opened the chest, she received a roulette. There were many rewards marked on the roulette, which made her frown slightly. It's actually a reward that can be chosen. There's even an absolute beginning essence to choose from. Consort Yu showed the roulette to everyone, and they were a little surprised. Every item on the roulette was good stuff. However, every good item required additional points to exchange for. For example, a metal-type absolute beginning essence required 100 points to exchange for. Unfortunately, among everyone, only Consort Yu had 103 points. Moreover, after deducting those points, she wouldn't be able to proceed to the next trial. Therefore, she could only look at the rewards. There were also many other items that required deductions. Consort Yu was a little reluctant. After all, she had already deducted 10 points from opening the chest, and another 10 points would be deducted from passing the trial later. In total, she was only left with 93 points. For the sake of saving, there were many things that she didn't need to choose, including the metal-type absolute beginning essence, the incomplete quasi-divine source item, the water-type Holy Spirit source, and so on. There was even a supreme grade creation item. This was a super creation item that was superior to the heavenly crystal grade creation item. The creation power contained within it was at least 10 times that of a first-grade heavenly crystal grade creation item. If this supreme grade creation item was absorbed by Long Yu, it would at least allow him to advance by 1 martial realm, or even 2 martial realms with ease. However, if he wanted to exchange for a supreme grade creation item, he would need to spend 80 points. Even Consort Yu didn't dare to take the risk. One had to know that if he was unlucky and used up 80 points now, he wouldn't be able to successfully step into the next area of the Eclipse Moon Ancient region. That would be a huge loss. For Consort Yu, everything else was secondary. The most important thing was to find the opportunity to step into the demigod realm. There was no doubt that she needed to move deeper into the Eclipse Moon Ancient region. If she coveted the treasures in the previous trials, it would obviously not be worth it. Therefore, they could only spend 20 points on this roulette to exchange for one of the more useful items. Assimilation field, the cultivation method from the 4th to the 6th stage. Previously, they had obtained the cultivation method for the first 3 stages of the assimilation field. Now, they had obtained the cultivation method for the 4th to the 6th stage of the assimilation field. This choice wasn't bad. After all, if they could cultivate it to the 6th stage, their effects in battle would definitely not be weak. Chapter 15:12. Consort Yu was the one who exchanged for the cultivation method for the 4th to 6th stages of the assimilation field. She spent 20 points and made her choice on the roulette. After exchanging for the cultivation method, the next thing everyone had to do was to cultivate. Just like the previous treasure stage, after obtaining the treasure, it was best to rest and improve their combat strength. Only then would they be easier to deal with later on. Unfortunately, after killing the foreign race opponents in the eroding Moon Ancient region, the opponents' corpses would be recycled by the eroding Moon Ancient region. Otherwise, they would be able to obtain a lot of good stuff from these experts. In particular, the Abyss race member that Moon Song fought just now had a broken divine source item. It would be great if they could get their hands on it, but unfortunately, of course, the rules of the eroding Moon Ancient region had always been like this. If they wanted to obtain treasures, they could either obtain them from the treasure stages or voluntarily hand them over before they died. However, in a battle between foreign races, how could they possibly hand over their treasures? Next, everyone started to cultivate the secret martial art technique, field assimilation. Even if they could only cultivate it to the 6th stage, the effects should be quite good. Moreover, as they continued to advance, it was very likely that they would be able to obtain the cultivation method for the final 3 stages. That way, although they could not cultivate it to its peak for the time being, they would still be able to do it when they returned. At the 3rd stage of the assimilation field, all kinds of power that entered the surrounding area would be weakened by 9%, and the power would be weakened by 9% every breath. It could be said that it was quite useful. If they could cultivate it to the 6th stage, according to the rules, they should be able to weaken the power of an attack by 36% every breath and convert it into the energy of the assimilation field. It was worth mentioning that the assimilation field's weakening and assimilation of the power of an attack was not cumulative, but superimposed. In other words, even if the opponent's attack stayed in the assimilation field for 3 breaths, it would not be completely weakened and assimilated. Instead, it would be superimposed until it was only a quarter of its original power. If they could reach the 9th stage of the assimilation field, the effect could be said to be super strong. Unfortunately, they could only cultivate it to the 6th stage. At this moment, whether it was Consort U, Long U, Red Oriole, or Moon Song, the spiritual energy stored in their mini-worlds could be said to be huge, just enough to be used to cultivate the assimilation field. With enough spiritual energy, cultivating the first 6 stages of the martial arts secret technique was still very fast. After 7 days, all 4 of them had cultivated the assimilation field to the 6th stage. Then, they tested it and found a very good thing. If the 4 of them used the assimilation field together, the assimilation field could be stacked. In other words, as long as the attack entered the stacked assimilation field, it would be equivalent to being weakened 4 times in a breath's time. This surprised the 4 of them. It seemed that if they fought together, they would have a higher chance of defeating the enemy. They didn't stay in the same place for too long. After the 4 of them finished cultivating and experimenting, they walked toward the teleportation array in the center of the room. They had already advanced about half the distance in the starting area. After a few more checkpoints, they should be able to reach the next advancement area. In the next stage, the alien races they would encounter would be more dangerous and strange. Moreover, there might not only be 2 alien races in a room, but more races would compete with each other. This made Long Yu think of something: the problem of the human race and the monster race. Obviously, the human race and the monster race did not belong to the same race, but in the Langya galaxy around the eroding moon ancient region, the human race and the monster race's encampment were united. After entering the eroding moon ancient region, they were also counted as united races. In other words, the divine spirit expert who left the eroding moon ancient region knew about the alliance between the human race and the monster race, so he deliberately set it up this way? When the eroding moon ancient region appeared, the human race and the monster race had been united for a long time, so this seemed to be normal. Shaking his head, Long Yu did not think too much about these useless things, and continued to focus on the next stage. After the 4 of them passed this stage, they entered the next stage, only to find that they were the only ones left in this stage. The entire stage room was pitch black, and there was nothing around it. At the same time, the others who came in with him had also disappeared. Long Yu's heart sank. Could it be that the 4 of them were transported separately? This situation did not look good, but fortunately, he found that it was not the case. According to the experience of the predecessors who entered the eroding moon ancient region, being transported separately would only occur when they reached the next stage, and in the starting stage, they would be transported together. While Long Yu was still hesitating, suddenly, a figure that looked exactly like Long Yu appeared in front of him. The figure gradually condensed from the white light curtain around the room, and unexpectedly, it looked exactly like Long Yu. This made Long Yu frown slightly. Could it be that this stage required them to challenge their respective mirror image doppelgangers? This was not particularly difficult for Long Yu, because he had done this many times in the past. But soon, he found that this stage was not so simple. Because the person he was facing was not his current self, but his future self. As for how he could tell, it was very simple. The figure that appeared in front of Long Yu was not a third-stage dominator like him, but a peak seventh-stage dominator. This made Long Yu feel awkward. Facing a peak seventh-stage dominator like himself, how could he defeat him? This was almost impossible. First of all, his opponent knew all the techniques that he knew, and second, his opponent's basic strength was dozens of times stronger than Long Yu's. The two of them were not on the same level at all. If it was another peak 7th stage dominator, such as the Abyss clan, Long Yu would still have the guts to try, but if it was a peak 7th stage dominator like himself, it was really difficult for him to deal with. At the same time, in another room, Consort Yu was facing herself, who had already stepped into the demigod realm. This situation made her constantly frown, and it was obvious that she was at a loss, just like Long Yu. Consort Yu had always wanted to step into the demigod realm, and she knew very well how much her strength would increase once she stepped into the demigod realm. If the mirror image in front of her was really at the demigod realm, then the difference in strength between them was not small. The difference between a peak 7th stage dominator and a demigod was really too big. This was not just a problem of basic strength, just basic strength alone was more than 10 times the difference. Not to mention, once one stepped into the demigod realm, there would be a qualitative change in the body's strength. Consort Yu was sure that she was definitely not a match for a demigod. Red Oriole and Moon Song were also facing a similar situation. The two of them were facing themselves at the peak 7th stage dominator realm. Moreover, all four of them were separated, so they had no way of knowing how the others were doing. This caused the hearts of the four to sink. What was going on in front of them? But no matter what, I still have to fight him. No matter how difficult the Eclipse Moon ancient region is, it's impossible for it to give me an obstacle that is impossible to pass. Maybe this guy is just a paper tiger. Long Yu thought to himself, and decided to take the initiative to attack first. He raised his hand, and Prophet Level 9 Nether Divine characters condensed in his body. He wanted to test the power of the 9 Nether Dragon Breath after it had fused with the Shadow Essence. In the previous treasure obstacle, Long Yu had not only cultivated the 4th to 6th stages of the assimilation field, but also obtained a piece of Shadow Essence, which he fused with the 9 Nether Dragon Breath, the 3rd innate divine ability fruit. He had never tried it before, and now was the time to test the power of this move. As the Prophet Level 9 Nether Divine characters condensed in his body, he instantly spat out a mouthful of pitch-black flames. This was the 9 Nether Dragon Breath. This time, the power of the 9 Nether Dragon Breath would definitely be more than 10 times stronger than before. Moreover, this 9 Nether Dragon Breath actually contained some kind of special corrosive power. Originally, Long Yu's compatibility with the Shadow Attribute Divine characters had reached the peak of the 12th stage. When he used the Shadow Attribute Divine characters, it would have a special corrosive power. Now that the 9 Nether Dragon Breath had fused with the Shadow Essence, the corrosive power was strengthened again, and it could even corrode the opponent's soul. This was another move that Long Yu could use, apart from the 4 symbols Death Prison, that could attack the opponent's soul. If it was me, facing this 9 Nether Dragon Breath attack, I would definitely transform into nothingness first, dodge it, and then think of a way to counterattack. Long Yu narrowed his eyes and thought to himself. He carefully observed the reaction of his peak 7th stage Great Sovereign against the 9 Nether Dragon Breath. Soon, he discovered that his opponent's reaction was actually beyond his expectations. The opponent didn't choose to transform into nothingness, nor did he use any of the techniques he knew. A layer of elemental divine characters condensed in front of that fellow. Immediately after, this layer of elemental divine characters blocked the 9 Nether Dragon Breath. Even though the 9 Nether Dragon Breath's destructive power was extremely strong, it was unable to destroy the layer of elemental divine characters. Elemental divine characters? Long Yu slightly furrowed his brows. He didn't think that he would switch to comprehending elemental divine characters when he reached the 7th stage Great Sovereign Realm. Was the thing in front of him really his future self? Or was it just a projection and illusion of something else? No one could completely understand the methods of the eroding moon ancient region. The scene in front of him was something that no one had ever seen before. It was very clear that this was a new trial in the eroding moon ancient region. The way to pass this trial was very simple, and that was to kill the fellow in front of him. No matter what, I just have to kill him. As for what he is, who cares? The eroding moon ancient region directly projected me as a peak 7th stage Great Sovereign Realm. They probably want to make me fear and give up, but, unfortunately, Long Yu wasn't someone who would give up so easily. Right now, he already had some guesses about this trial. However, he couldn't confirm it for the time being. It was better to fight and see. Chapter 15-13. Long Yu guessed that the opponent in front of him should be a member of a foreign race. However, because of the Eclipse Moon ancient region, it appeared to be a peak 7th stage, Sovereign Realm version of himself. If that was the case, Long Yu thought that in the eyes of this foreign race, he was also a 7th stage Sovereign Realm opponent. The Eclipse Moon ancient region's test couldn't only target humans or demons. It should be the same for foreign races. Therefore, this foreign race and Long Yu should both feel that the other party was a future version of themselves. If that was the case, both sides would be somewhat shaken and have the intention to retreat before the fight even started. However, there was no doubt that neither Long Yu nor the foreign race would retreat. Both sides were well-known figures in their own races. Even if they met a future version of themselves in peak condition, they wouldn't be scared off. When Long Yu used the 9 underworlds dragon breath, the foreign race definitely saw that the person in front of it was definitely not the future version of itself. This foreign race was an existence that used elemental divine characters. How could it suddenly use a shadow-type divine character technique like the 9 underworlds dragon breath? Even if it was the future version of itself, the possibility of such a change was extremely small. When Long Yu saw the opponent's elemental barrier, he also reacted. This should be some kind of foreign race. However, it was a projection of himself in the form of a 7th stage sovereign realm, causing him to feel a trace of panic in his heart. In this way, Long Yu also let go of the conflict in his heart. Since it was a foreign race, even if it really was a peak 7th stage sovereign realm existence, he wouldn't admit defeat before the fight even started. As the opponent used the elemental divine character barrier to block Long Yu's 9 underworlds dragon breath, the other party launched a series of fierce attacks towards Long Yu. All of them were condensed from elemental divine characters. Strong winds suddenly swept over, transforming into tornadoes that descended from the sky, engulfing Long Yu's entire body. Long Yu used the Battle Berserker Celestial Barrier and was swept into the tornadoes. The barrier quickly shattered, and his physical body continuously disintegrated within the tornadoes. Due to the Devil Dust Heart's activation, it was continuously reformed. Within the tornado, Long Yu couldn't find a chance to counterattack. Even though he had used the Nether Dragon Blade to travel through the void to a nearby place, he found that the tornado had followed him. This caused Long Yu to feel a trace of disbelief. His opponent's attack had actually become one with his physical body. Wherever he went, it would follow him. Even if he teleported through the void, he wouldn't be able to shake it off. This was a tracking tornado. Long Yu's heart skipped a beat and he did not dwell on this matter. Instead, he continued to teleport through the void. In an instant, he teleported to the side of the alien race and brought the tornado to the alien race's body. The outsider clearly didn't expect Long Yu to do this. He was taken aback and retreated. In Long Yu's eyes, it was his own image that kept retreating. But now, He was very clear that it was just a projection of him in the eroding moon ancient domain. Assimilate stance. Long Yu felt that even the devil dust heart couldn't withstand it, so he could only use the assimilate stance. After using the assimilate stance, Long Yu realized that the other party's tornado attack just happened to be restrained by the assimilate stance. This was because the tornado constantly revolved around Long Yu and constantly stopped in the vicinity of Long Yu. Then, it would be constantly weakened by the assimilate stance. Every breath of time, the tornado's power would be weakened by about 1/3. Then, it would continue to stack up. In just 5 breaths of time, the tornado couldn't hurt Long Yu at all. As expected of a martial arts secret technique obtained from the eroding moon ancient domain, the effect is not bad. The corner of Long Yu's mouth curled up. He also knew that the effect was not bad under special circumstances. The assimilate stance was extremely effective against such a method. As the tornado's power continued to weaken, the other party clearly saw that such a move couldn't deal with Long Yu. In the next moment, an ice prison fell from the sky, trying to freeze Long Yu within. The ice element divine characters of the elemental attribute were 2 different things from the ice element divine characters. The principles behind them were different, and they didn't belong to the water element primordial force like the ice element divine characters. The elemental attributes were all derived from the fire element primordial force, including ice, fire, wind, thunder, light, darkness, and so on. In the end, they all contained a trace of the fire element primordial force. Their destructive power was very strong, even stronger than the ice element divine characters and the fire element divine characters. It was just that they didn't have any special attack effects. For example, the freezing of ice, the burning of fire, the corrosion of shadow, and so on didn't have any special effects. At this moment, the ice prison that the other party had used immediately descended on Long Yu's body. Endless elemental ice seemed to completely freeze Long Yu into an ice cube. Control method. Seeing this, Long Yu narrowed his eyes. He wasn't afraid of such a move at all. Regardless of whether it was control methods or spiritual attacks, they were all ineffective against Long Yu. In fact, if they were used against Long Yu, it would even give Long Yu a great opportunity. World-cleansing soul mirror. Long Yu's entire body was covered by the world-cleansing soul mirror. Immediately after, the ice prison that the other party had used was directly reflected back by the world-cleansing soul mirror. Moreover, it was reflected back with 10 times the power, directly enveloping the other party. Immediately after, Long Yu activated Descent of the Berserk God and bombarded the ice prison with one punch after another, continuously stacking his own fighting heaven power. At this time, the ice prison kept shattering under the attacks from both inside and outside. When the ice prison broke and the other party reappeared in front of Long Yu had already stacked more than 10 layers of fighting heaven power. I wonder what this other party's cultivation is. Under the concealment of the eroding moon ancient region, it was really difficult for Long Yu to determine the other party's martial Dao realm. However, no matter what, as long as he kept stacking fighting heaven power, he would definitely be able to kill the other party in the end. Even if the other party was in existence at the peak of the 7th phase Great Sovereign Realm, it was not impossible for Long Yu to kill the other party. It should be known that Long Yu had not used an extremely powerful method for a period of time, the 8 Extreme Bloodline. If he activated the 8 Extreme Bloodline, even the peak of the 7th phase Great Sovereign Realm Abyss race might be killed by Long Yu alone. Of course, the price Long Yu would have to pay for this was not small. Just activating the 8 Extreme Bloodline required a lot of creation items to repair his damaged small world. Right now, the creation items he had on him were not enough for him to repair his small world. Therefore, once he activated the 8 Extreme Bloodline, Long Yu's combat strength would most likely be greatly weakened when he reached the next stage. After all, his small world would have suffered quite a bit of damage. Of course, now that Long Yu was alone, if he still couldn't kill the other party in the end, activating the 8 extreme bloodline was inevitable. As Long Yu kept stacking fighting heaven power, the other party kept releasing all kinds of elemental attack. Ice, fire, light, darkness, wind, lightning, all kinds of elemental attacks came one after another. Every kind of elemental attack was extremely destructive, and could even destroy half of Long Yu's physical body. It should be known that the current strength of his physical body was completely equivalent to the level of a 7th phase Great Sovereign. Fortunately, he had cultivated the Devil Dust Heart, which allowed Long Yu to constantly use this secret martial arts technique to reconstruct his fleshly body. Moreover, because of the 132 mysterious patterns imprinted in his mind, the speed at which his fleshly body was reconstructed was extremely fast. This fellow who couldn't be killed made the other party extremely annoyed. Moreover, he quickly sensed that the power of each of Long Yu's punches was increasing. It should be some kind of martial technique that could stack its power as the battle went on. In the next moment, the other party summoned a pitch-black stone. It was obvious that it was a divine absolute beginning item, and it had been awakened to a relatively high level. Immediately after, an 11th awakening skill was used. Countless dark lines condensed from the void, and with the attraction of the pitch-black stone, they directly bombarded Long Yu. Through the ice prison, the other party already knew that control methods were useless against Long Yu. Therefore, all he used on Long Yu was an attack through and through. Countless dark lines surrounded Long Yu, and even the nearby space was sealed, making it impossible for him to escape. The 11th awakening skill of a divine absolute beginning item was equivalent to the power of Moonsong's starry sky breaking slash. Moreover, the other party's martial Dao realm was very likely higher than Moonsong's, a 7th phase Great Sovereign. Ancient Dragon Bone Tower. 9 Underworld Heavenly Screen. Even with dozens of layers of battler heavenly power, Long Yu wasn't sure if the battler heavenly body could withstand it. Therefore, he directly summoned the ancient Dragon Bone Tower and hid inside, then activated several layers of the 9 Underworld Heavenly Screen. The dark lines bombarded the ancient Dragon Bone Tower continuously, and actually easily destroyed 5 layers of the 9 Underworld Heavenly Screen. However, the dark lines were immediately unable to destroy the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. It was clear that the other party's attack wasn't at the peak of the 7th phase Great Sovereign. Otherwise, it was very likely that some cracks would have appeared on the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. This made Long Yu heave a sigh of relief. If it wasn't a peak 7th phase Great Sovereign, but an ordinary 7th phase Great Sovereign, Long Yu wouldn't have to use his 8 extreme bloodline to deal with it. However, as soon as Long Yu came out of the ancient Dragon Bone Tower, he discovered that the other party's attack was descending upon him again. Elemental Storm. This was clearly a move that the other party had been preparing for a long time. Water, fire, light, darkness, wind, and lightning, 6 great elemental divine characters respectively enveloped and gathered from all directions, forming a terrifying storm that covered the heavens and earth. The elemental divine characters in this elemental storm actually stimulated each other and continuously strengthened each other. As time passed, the power of this elemental storm grew stronger and stronger. Chapter 15-14. Water, fire, light, darkness, wind, and thunder in the elemental storm. The 6 elemental powers could actually become stronger through contact with each other. This was obviously the strength of the opponent's elemental storm. If this continued, as long as the 6 elemental powers in the elemental storm continued to collide with each other, the destructive power of the elemental storm would become stronger and stronger. Assimilation Field. Long Yu continued to activate the assimilation field without hesitation, and then took the initiative to fly towards the elemental storm. Since the opponent would become stronger and stronger, he would contain it when it was weaker. Long Yu quickly flew into the elemental storm. However, Even though the elemental storm had just formed, its destructive power was already very shocking. The 6 elemental powers attacked each other, causing an extremely strong tearing force to Long Yu. However, Long Yu only lasted for 3 breaths of time. Under the weakening effect of the assimilation field, the storm suddenly weakened, causing almost no damage to Long Yu. There was no doubt that the assimilation field that Long Yu cultivated could restrain the means of the opponent in front of him. Almost all of the opponent's skills were destroyed before they could even use them. Although the elemental storm condensed by the 6 elemental powers was still getting stronger, the speed of its strengthening couldn't keep up with the speed of the assimilation field's weakening. As a result, the power of the elemental storm also became weaker and weaker. In the next moment, Long Yu condensed countless primordial afterimages and continuously punched at the elemental storm. Divine runes erupted in an instant, and the elemental storm actually collapsed. Meanwhile, Long Yu's superimposed heavenly berserker power had finally reached the 80th level. He still had some means that he hadn't used yet, such as the Book of Shadow's divine ability, Void Incarnation. However, there was no need to use these things for the time being. They could be used at the critical moment to maximize the effect and lay the foundation for victory in the entire battle. Correspondingly, Long Yu's opponent obviously hadn't used some of his trump cards. Countless elemental divine runes condensed around that alien, making Long Yu look rather awkward. After all, that alien looked exactly like Long Yu. After the elemental divine runes condensed, the alien's figure disappeared. The only thing left in Long Yu's eyes was the elemental storm that had condensed. From the elemental storm, small sword chis were condensed and shot towards Long Yu. These small sword energies were formed from elemental ice, elemental fire, and elemental wind and lightning. They were colorful and fast. Before long, these small sword chis formed a storm of sword chis and violently swept towards Long Yu. As the elemental sword chi enveloped the area, Long Yu raised his hand and gathered the power of the Enlightenment Level 9 Nether Divine characters. Then, the 9 Nether Sphere appeared above his head. Countless entangling shadow lines fell on each of the small sword chi, reducing the speed of the sword chi's attack. Long Yu continued to maintain the assimilation field as he approached the alien. Under the weakening of the assimilation field and the deceleration of the 9 Nether Sphere, the elemental sword chi's power had been reduced by nearly 2/3 before they could even get close to Long Yu. Even if the remaining ones could penetrate Long Yu's body, they wouldn't be able to cause much damage to him. They were directly reconstructed by the Devil Dust Heart. As Long Yu got closer, the other party also realized that the elemental sword chi was useless against Long Yu. It was obvious that the assimilation field's existence had greatly weakened the alien's strength. Basically, all of the other party's techniques would be weakened by the assimilation field. Of course, if one only relied on the assimilation field, they wouldn't be able to weaken the elemental sword chi too much. After all, they were extremely fast. However, with the restriction and deceleration of the 9 Nether Sphere, the speed of the elemental sword chi was reduced. In the assimilation field, they were also weakened even more. As a result, they couldn't hurt Long Yu at all. This made the alien extremely irritated. It was the first time it had seen such a technique that could actually weaken all the power that got close to its body. Under such circumstances, it would be best to use physical attack. Unfortunately, this alien wasn't good at physical attack. Its best technique was still the elemental divine text. Unfortunately, its innate mystique was completely restrained by the assimilation field. The pitch-black stone-like absolute beginning divine-grade artifact kept flying around in the field at this moment. Countless pitch-black lines kept condensing and attacking Long Yu again. It was still the 11th level absolute beginning divine-grade awakening skill. However, at this moment, Long Yu no longer needed to use the Dragon Bone Ancient Tower to block it. This was because the Battlecry Heavenly Power had already been stacked to more than 80 levels. Even if he used the battlecry Heavenly Barrier, his defense would be more than 80 times stronger. The battlecry Heavenly Barrier was a tyrannical technique that was both offensive and defensive. The battlecry Heavenly Barrier appeared on the surface of Long Yu's body. The black lines came crashing down, but they couldn't break through Long Yu's defensive barrier. This also meant that Long Yu's Berserker Divine Text had reached an extremely powerful level. His physical body was about to collapse on its own. As the battlecry Heavenly Power continued to stack, he would soon be able to use the battlecry Dragon Fist. Long Yu relied on the battlecry Heavenly Barrier to resist the other party's absolute beginning Divine Grade Awakening skill. Then, the Void Spirit Dragon Blade quietly appeared behind the other party. He used Void Burial and condensed the Water-type Absolute Beginning Power, ready to explode in the next moment. That foreign race being's reaction was extremely fast as well, as he bolted away with his fastest speed possible. However, Long Yu was hot on his heels. Gripping his fist tightly, he punched out at that guy. A wall of earth appeared in front of Long Yu. His fist landed on the wall of earth. More than 80 levels of the battlecry Heavenly Power didn't shatter the wall of earth. However, this wasn't necessarily a bad thing for Long Yu. Continue. The battlecry Heavenly Cannon kept blasting. After 5 punches, Long Yu finally shattered the wall of earth. As a result, the battlecry Heavenly Power was directly stacked 5 levels, making his strength even stronger. However, as soon as the wall of earth collapsed, Long Yu discovered that the alien had actually disappeared. Did he escape? Long Yu did not hesitate to cast the light of equalization on himself, strengthening his spiritual sense and perception. However, he was still unable to find the location of the other party. This entire space was not big, with a radius of less than 10 miles. It was impossible for the other party to have run away. In that case, the other party's hiding ability was very strong. It was also at this time that Long Yu suddenly sensed that something was wrong. An extremely strong destructive power had actually exploded near his heart. The other party actually had a technique similar to the spatial rending blow. It directly attacked the position of Long Yu's heart. Unfortunately, Long Yu's heart wasn't his vital point. Even though Long Yu's heart was destroyed in an instant, the devil dust heart below Long Yu's heart beat directly. In an instant, Long Yu's own heart was reconstructed. Immediately after, Long Yu turned into nothingness and disappeared from the scene. Since the other party had such a technique, it was very likely that he could find the location of his devil dust heart and shatter it. Although the strength of the devil dust heart was 10 times stronger than his physical body, if the other party concentrated on one point, it was still possible that he could shatter the devil dust heart. Therefore, Long Yu had to be careful. He couldn't continue to fight casually. Both sides had hidden themselves from view, causing the situation to be in a stalemate. However, it was clear that both sides were using the power of divination. Whether it was Long Yu or the alien, both of them had the ability to use divination while hiding themselves. What Long Yu was worried about now was that his power of deduction was very likely not as strong as the other party. The possibility of the other party discovering him first was extremely high. Moreover, if he continued to hide like this, after a period of time, the levels of Long Yu's fighting heaven power would gradually decrease. Clearly, the other party had guessed this, so he deliberately hid himself. Long Yu was extremely focused now. However, he soon gave up on using the power of deduction. This was because his power of deduction was not strong. There was no possibility of him deducing the other party's location first. Therefore, he switched to other methods. He took out the shadow essence from his Juyo Dragon Emperor mystique and integrated it into his 4th mystique. His 4th mystique, which he hadn't used for a long time, was Eye of Shadow. If he hadn't integrated the shadow essence, this was just an ordinary detection technique, a method to increase the range of spiritual awareness. However, now that he had integrated the shadow essence, the situation was different. Long Yu didn't know what effect it would have, but when he integrated the shadow essence into the innate mystique fruit, he was pleasantly surprised. This was because after the shadow essence was integrated into the Eye of Shadow, it could be called the Divine Shadow Eye. At this moment, the effect of the Eye of Shadow was that he could clearly sense all the energy waves in the surrounding space, including mental power, soul power, and so on. Long Yu directly appeared from the state of nothingness, and then used the shadow eye. A shadow pupil appeared above his head, and immediately, all the energy ripples in the surroundings were revealed. Under such a scanning, even Long Yu, who had turned into nothingness, would be discovered. Needless to say, the other party's concealment method was definitely not as good as the Book of Shadows' nothingness. Under the scanning of the Divine Shadow Eye, waves of mental and soul power waves came from the field. Long Yu clearly discovered the other party's location. Long Yu clenched his fists tightly and teleported towards the other party's location. Then, he punched out. The other party's body was also emitting waves of deduction power. It was obvious that the other party was constantly deducing Long Yu's location. However, it didn't expect Long Yu to directly appear beside it and punch out. At the same time, countless lines of death condensed, and the four symbols death prison completely enveloped the other party. The other party's concealment method was only for concealment. It didn't have the effect of turning into nothingness. Therefore, whether it was Long Yu's punch or the lines of death from the four symbols death prison, they were able to cause the other party normal effects and completely injure it. Chapter 15:15. The shadow essence could be disassembled at any time and place and integrated into other innate sacred fruit. Long Yu transferred the shadow essence to the shadow eye and transformed it into the shadow eye. Finally, he found the traces of his opponent and launched a fierce attack. The four symbols death prison descended without any warning and enveloped the alien race expert. The death aura constantly gathered and eroded his body. Very quickly, it caused great damage to his spirit and soul. Long Yu did not stop and continued to use the Berserker Fist cannon. When he used the last Berserker Dragon Fist, Long Yu's body started to crumble. However, as soon as the fist landed, the elemental defensive barrier of the opponent was shattered into pieces. It was completely unable to withstand the attack. Long Yu blasted out with the Berserk Dragon Fist once more, directly shattering the opponent's fleshly body. It looked as though Long Yu had shattered his own fleshly body. After all, from Long Yu's point of view, the other party was an existence that was exactly the same as him. The four symbols death prison did not stop and the death aura continued to entangle the opponent. When the opponent was weak, it completely destroyed his spirit and soul. When the opponent's spirit died, his body was directly collected by the eroding moon ancient domain. It did not give Long Yu any chance to pick up any spoils of war. Finally done, Long Yu heaved a sigh of relief. The strength of the alien race expert was not weak. Fortunately, he had many tricks up his sleeves and could still use the Shadow Divine Eye at the crucial moment. Otherwise, he really did not know how long he would be in a deadlock with the opponent. Now, Long Yu was not afraid of ordinary opponents. What he was afraid of was the powerful existence that could directly destroy his body. Otherwise, Long Yu would be able to easily recover by relying on the Devil Dust Heart. Even if he had to consume some of his energy, he would be able to make up for it. Unless his opponent could repeatedly destroy Long Yu's physical body and had the strength to destroy the Devil Dust Heart. If that was the case, Long Yu would be in an extremely dangerous situation. After he killed the opponent, the scene in front of him changed. In front of him was a room that looked like a beehive. In this beehive, each hole was an independent space. Long Yu had fought in one of these holes. Now, Long Yu finally saw the scene outside the beehole. It turned out to be a dueling ground. In each of the wasp holes there were two foreign races fighting each other. Only the one who survived would be able to leave the wasp holes alive and proceed to the next checkpoint of the eroding moon ancient domain. In other words, at this stage, the elimination rate had reached more than half. This was something that the eroding moon ancient region didn't have before. As Long Yu looked around, he quickly discovered Consort Yu, Red Oriole, and Moon Song. He could tell that the three women weren't in a bad state. Among them, Consort Yu was suppressing her opponents, while Moon Song and Red Oriole were in a stalemate. Long Yu couldn't help but worry, but there was no point in worrying now. He couldn't affect anyone else in the wasp hole. It seems that I have to wait for them to finish fighting before I can teleport to the next checkpoint. Long Yu thought to himself. After all, the four of them were together. In the starting area, they would be together at the beginning, but in the end, they would be teleported together. They would only be separated when they reached the advancement area. However, this checkpoint seemed to allow players to give up. Long Yu saw many of the outsiders in the bee-hole. Their bodies immediately flashed with a white light. After that, those outsiders directly disappeared from the bee-hole. Generally speaking, this phenomenon occurred to the disadvantaged side. This was probably the result of voluntarily giving up. Perhaps the foreign race Long Yu was fighting didn't expect to give up at this checkpoint, or maybe it didn't want to give up and thought that it had a chance to turn the tables. That was why it was killed by Long Yu, its soul dissipating in the end. In this beehive battle checkpoint, everyone saw their opponents as if they were their future selves. First of all, there was psychological pressure. Second, they didn't know what kind of foreign race their opponents were, so it was difficult to deal with them correctly. This was a test of the reaction speed and overall combat strength of the participants. The more tricks up their sleeves, the more advantageous it was for them, and the more likely they were to win in the end. However, now that Long Yu had finished his battle, he could see what the other people's opponents were like. Consort Yu's opponent was a peak 7th phase ruler from the fire god race. Moon Song's opponent was a 6th phase dominator from the wood god race. Both sides were evenly matched, and both were well-known figures from their respective races. For the time being, there was no clear victor. Although Moon Song was very strong, the 6th phase dominator from the wood god race was also very strong. In the outside world, he was an expert who could jump realms to fight and kill 7th phase dominators. As for Red Oriole's opponent, it was a relatively unfamiliar foreign race. Although it also came from the Langya starfield, it was normally impossible to encounter this kind of foreign race. This foreign race looked like an insect. It had a flat body, and its entire body was wrapped in dark gray tentacles. It looked extremely disgusting. However, from Red Oriole's point of view, this thing should be in existence that looked similar to her. However, the techniques it used were all corrosive shadow-type divine characters, making it difficult for Red Oriole to deal with. Most importantly, this foreign race existence had the strength of a 7th phase ruler. This was a bit too much pressure for Red Oriole, who was a 5th phase ruler. According to the basic strength of the foreign race I just fought, it should be an ordinary 7th phase ruler. Long Yu narrowed his eyes. From the situation on the battlefield, he could guess that the eroding moon ancient region didn't assign opponents according to their martial cultivation, but according to their overall strength. Otherwise, there was no way that Long Yu, who was only a 3rd phase ruler, would be able to fight a 7th phase ruler. Did the eroding moon ancient region see through him and know that he could fight a 7th phase ruler? Long Yu was more concerned about Red Oriole's battle. Apart from this, there were over 100 battles going on in the beehive at the same time. Among them, there were quite a few humans and demons fighting against foreign races. Among them, Long Yu saw Long Zai Tian and another expert from the battlefield army, Qi Beifei. Long Yu had asked around about Qi Beifei. This guy was a good friend of Long Zai Tian from the battlefield. However, when the Heavenly Fire Doyen was with Long Yu, he had said that he wanted Long Yu to kill Qi Beifei. It was clear that Long Yu didn't have the strength to do so. However, in the eroding moon ancient region, if he encountered a good opportunity, it wouldn't be too difficult to kill Qi Beifei. Originally, Long Yu was a bit conflicted. Qi Beifei and Long Zai-Tian were good friends from the battlefield. However, since Long Zai-Tian couldn't remember the past, Long Yu acted as if it never happened. He couldn't be bothered to care about Long Zai-Tian's feelings. Long Zai-Tian and Qi Beifei's opponents were peak 7th stage sovereigns. After all, they were peak 7th stage sovereigns and were extremely strong. Long Yu carefully observed the battle between Long Zai-Tian and Qi Beifei. He discovered that their combat strength was indeed very strong. At least, the current Long Yu couldn't match them. Even if Consort Yu encountered them, she wouldn't be able to deal with them so easily. At the peak 7th stage sovereigns, it wasn't a simple question of who was stronger or weaker. There were various factors such as restraining techniques, improvisation, and so on. Different times, different places, the same opponents, and the outcome was unknown. It was the same even if it was Consort Yu. Of course, Consort Yu's overall strength was still relatively strong. Her overall strength surpassed that of ordinary peak 7th stage sovereigns. After all, she had comprehended the metal element's origin power for a long time in the Void Galaxy. She had also comprehended the Prophet Rank 9 Nether Divine Text. Her combat strength was slightly stronger than that of ordinary cultivators. It was a wonderful thing for Long Yu to be able to end the beehive battle prematurely. This allowed him to observe all the battles in the nearby beehives. It allowed him to familiarize himself with the opponents he might encounter in the future. There were many foreign races, humans, and demons. Just like that, their battles appeared in front of Long Yu. This caused Long Yu to eagerly observe all the battles around him. Apart from deliberately observing Consort Yu, Moon Song, and Red Oriole, he focused most of his attention on the other foreign races around him. There was a particularly large beehive with a Silverstone race in it. The Silverstone race was one of the 3 races near the Void Galaxy. They were huge like a small mountain. It was hard to tell what kind of being they were fighting against, but what was it? After all, he didn't know if the illusion of the eroding moon ancient region was the same. Moreover, with such a large body, if the opponent still thought it was the future version of the Silverstone race, it would be very strange to fight it. Perhaps the eroding moon ancient region was to make the opponent think that the Silverstone race was a large mountain. There was only one race like the Silverstone race in the entire Lang Yastar area. With such a large body, people would know it was the Silverstone race at first glance when they fought it. Compared to the Abyss race, the Silverstone race's physical strength was even more terrifying. It was really as strong as a small mountain. Moreover, unlike the Abyss race, which only knew how to use their physical strength, the Silverstone race was also a powerful foreign race that could control the power of the divine characters. Moreover, each Silverstone race member could control a different divine character. The Silverstone race being observed by Long Yu used not only its physical strength, but also the power of the Berserker divine characters. Each of its moves carried a terrifying aura. Its opponent was a small foreign race member with 3 pairs of wings. Its body was much smaller than a human, let alone the Silverstone race. It was like a mosquito. However, the strength of this 6-winged foreign race member was definitely not weak. Just like the Silverstone race member, this 6-winged foreign race member's martial realm was at the peak of the 7th level Great Sovereign Realm. It mainly used the 2 attributes of ice and fire divine characters. Moreover, it had comprehended the corresponding power of the Revelation grade divine characters. Its combat strength was extremely tyrannical. In the battle between the 2 sides, the 6-winged foreign race member wasn't at a disadvantage at all. Instead, it used the characteristics of the ice and fire divine characters to constantly control its opponent, giving it an advantage. Chapter 15-16. Long Yu paid close attention to the battle between the 6-winged race and the Silverstone race. On one hand, the Silverstone race was a race that lived near the edge of the Void Galaxy. If he could learn more about their combat prowess, it would be of great help to the Void Galaxy's development in the future. This was a good opportunity to learn more about them. On the other hand, the Six-Winged Clan was said to be one of the 3 strongest clans in the entire Lang Yastar area. The main reason was that the cultivation resources in the territory of the Six-Winged Clan were extremely rich. There were many inheritances of the divine characters of Revelation level. As a result, the average strength of the Six-Winged Clan was much higher than the other clans at the same realm. Almost every genius of the Six-Winged Clan who was qualified to come to the Eroding Moon ancient region had comprehended the divine text of the Revelation level. Moreover, their battle prowess was as terrifying as Long Yu's. This was enough to prove the strength of this clan. Fortunately, Long Yu and the other 3 hadn't encountered any opponents from the Six-Winged Clan. Otherwise, the battle would have become much more difficult. This Six-Winged race being, who had comprehended the Revelation level ice and fire divine characters, was able to suppress the Silverstone race being. Logically speaking, the individual strength of the Silverstone race was very strong. Normally, they would be able to crush opponents of the same realm. But now, the Silverstone clan was being continuously suppressed by the Six-Winged Clan, and they were forced to retreat step by step. Their mountain-like body was continuously covered in scars caused by the divine characters of fire and ice, and the number of wounds kept increasing. Although the regenerative ability of the Silverstone race was also very strong, it still couldn't compare to Long Yu's Devil Dust Heart. Therefore, those injuries still couldn't heal so quickly. Long Yu carefully observed the Six-Winged Clan member. Every member of the Six-Winged Clan was quite small. They were even half the size of a human. Almost every member of the Six-Winged Clan was only 3 feet tall, just like an ordinary iron sword. Moreover, their bodies were very small. The essence of their strength was concentrated in the 3 pairs of wings on their back. Based on the color of the 6-winged beasts, one could tell their lineage within the clan. In the Six-Winged Clan, the strongest bloodline was undoubtedly the one that possessed the golden 6-winged bloodline, followed by the silver 6-winged bloodline, followed by the black, white, or black and white stripes of the 6-winged bloodline. Gold was stronger than silver, but it was also stronger than black or white. As for the black and white 6-winged bloodlines, they were about the same. They were only good at different domains, but there was not much difference in their individual combat strength. The 6-winged clan that Long Yu was observing was the strongest golden 6-winged clan. The divine characters of ice and fire were both revealed divine characters, which showed how powerful this fellow was. Among the more than 40 clans in Lang Yastar area that had come to participate in this competition, the 6-winged clan was the strongest existence. Moreover, this 6-winged clan's outstanding expert was a peerless genius, relying on the fact that the Silverstone clan's member was able to withstand the attacks of the 6-winged clan member for a long time. However, in the end, he still couldn't withstand the attacks of the 6-winged clan member. This 6-winged clan is much stronger than me. They are even stronger than Consort Yu. They are not far from the level of demigods. Long Yu couldn't help but think to himself as he observed the battle of the golden 6-winged race. If he encountered this golden 6-winged clan member in the later stages, the situation would be really bad. However, no one could predict the situation in the Eroding Moon ancient region. If he really couldn't defeat them, he could only give up and retreat. No matter what, his life was the most important. If Long Yu could increase his martial realm to the 6th stage of the Dominator realm, he might be able to fight against this 6-winged clan member. However, it was obvious that Long Yu didn't have this chance at all. The opponent could crush Long Yu with just its basic strength. Moreover, the methods that Long Yu was good at using the weak to defeat the strong were ineffective against this golden 6-winged clan member. The opponent was also a tyrannical existence that could defeat the strong. Moreover, it was a peak 7th stage dominator. It could be said that if they were to fight one-on-one, this golden six-winged clan member could definitely be ranked in the top 10 among the nearly 10,000 individuals that entered the eroding moon ancient region. Although Consort Yu was strong, she was still young. Her combat strength was about the same as Frost and Imperial Wind. In the overall ranking of the Langustar region, she could only be ranked in the top 50. Of course, the opponents that the eroding moon ancient region allocated were basically opponents with similar strength. It wouldn't be easy for Long Yu and the others to encounter this golden six-winged clan member. Of course, this was only the case in the starting area. Once they reached the advancement area, the situation would be another matter. This was because no one knew what the situation in the advancement area of the eroding moon ancient region was like. No one even knew what the situation after the beehive was like. Long Yu guessed that this eclipse moon ancient domain was definitely not formed by itself. There should be someone controlling it from behind the scenes. No matter how he thought about it, the only person who could control this eclipse moon ancient domain was a divine spirit. Long Yu observed the golden six-winged clan member's body. Other than the 6 wings, it also had a streamlined body that was extremely beautiful. It was different from most of the other clans that Long Yu had seen. From the perspective of humans and demons, the 6-winged clan was a very beautiful clan. This made Long Yu enjoy watching the golden 6-winged clan members battle. The long, snow-white streamlined body shone with a golden light under the illumination of the golden 6-winged clan member. It had 6 long and thin limbs that looked like the limbs of humans. However, they were extremely thin and looked very weak. The 6-winged clan members were born with the ability to control and use space divine characters. They relied on their 6 wings. In Long Yu's eyes, the golden 6-winged clan member who was constantly fluttering in the air was like a small golden butterfly. It was agile and elegant. Although the Silverstone clan member was strong, he couldn't touch this little guy at all. On the contrary, the golden 6-winged clan member continuously shot out ice and fire divine characters. Every move of the golden 6-winged clan member could cause great damage to the Silverstone clan member. As the battle progressed, the golden 6-winged clan member condensed a wave of flame light. Long Yu could tell that this wave of flame light was extraordinary just by looking at it. Moreover, the speed of the wave of flame light was extremely terrifying. In an instant, the body of the Silverstone clan member was completely penetrated. However, the Silverstone clan had an advantage in battle. It had fewer vital points. The entire Silverstone clan was like a small mountain. Its body was formed by some silver stones. It could be disassembled and reassembled at will. The core of its power was definitely hidden in a place that the opponent couldn't guess. Moreover, the core of its power could be moved at will. If one wanted to suppress a Silverstone clan member, one only needed to be a little faster. However, it wasn't that easy to kill a Silverstone clan member. Even though the golden 6-winged clan member was constantly using all kinds of tyrannical methods to kill the Silverstone clan member in front of it, it couldn't succeed in a short time. Long Yu guessed that if he were to go up against the Silverstone clan member, he probably wouldn't even be able to damage the outer shell of the Silverstone clan member. The only way to deal with it was to rely on the 4 symbols death prison to attack the opponent's mind and soul. However, Long Yu didn't know how effective it would be. After all, he hadn't really fought a Silverstone clan member before. However, in the next moment, something strange happened on the battlefield. In the blink of an eye, the golden 6-winged clan member unleashed an extremely terrifying method. Countless flames condensed into chains that completely trapped the Silverstone clan member. All of the flame chains carried the power to burn the mind and soul. At the same time, the golden 6-winged clan member flapped its wings and appeared right in front of the Silverstone clan member. It was obvious that it had used some kind of mind control method. This golden 6-winged clan genius had not only comprehended the prophetation grade fire and ice divine text, but he had also comprehended the prophetation grade life divine text. The powerful mind control type of divine text derived from wood element primordial power could be said to be a type of life divine text. The fact that the golden six-winged clan member could comprehend the prophetation grade life divine text instantly pulled the Silverstone clan member into an illusion. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for the Silverstone clan member to retreat. In just a moment, the flame chains completely burned his mind and soul to ashes. He couldn't even choose to retreat. Seeing this, Long Yu finally understood that it wasn't that the golden six-winged clan member could not kill the Silverstone clan member. Instead, it was looking for an opportunity to kill the Silverstone clan member so that it couldn't retreat and gain 10 points. Otherwise, if the Silverstone clan member ran away, the golden six-winged clan member would be able to pass this level, but it would lose 10 points. To it definitely had to get as many points as possible. After killing the Silverstone clan member, the golden six-winged clan member stopped moving. At this time, Long Yu suddenly felt a sharp power sweep over him. His heart jumped. Could the golden six-winged clan member have discovered him? After all, after the battle, it could observe the entire beehive. This was definitely the same for others and Long Yu. It wasn't that Long Yu had any special privileges. Therefore, while Long Yu was observing others, some of the foreign races that had already finished their battles and were waiting could also see Long Yu. However, the golden six-winged clan member noticed Long Yu as soon as the battle ended. This surprised Long Yu. Could it be that the golden six-winged clan member knew that he was observing him? The golden six-winged clan member clearly sized up Long Yu, but it quickly shifted its attention. The six-winged foreign race member didn't have eyes, but its spiritual sense and perception were extremely strong. With just a glance, it was able to obtain a lot of information about Long Yu. It was obvious that the golden six-winged clan member didn't care about Long Yu, who was a third-phase sovereign realm human. Although it was already very good that a mere third-phase sovereign realm human could reach this beehive, for the golden six-winged clan member, as long as it wasn't a peak seventh-phase sovereign realm existence, it didn't need to care. After all, it was impossible for that person to be its opponent. The golden six-winged clan member wasn't immediately teleported to the next level, which meant that it had companions in this beehive. Long Yu looked around and finally found a silver six-winged clan member fighting with a peak seventh-phase sovereign realm desolate god clan member. The battle didn't seem to be going well. The desolate god clan member was extremely powerful, and he was actually suppressing the silver six-winged clan member. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.